1 second.
Why do 70% of critical thinkers ditch Disney Plus? Because they found something better. In today's economy, every dollar counts. So what's worth subscribing to? Let's compare Disney Plus and no Soundbites Allowed. With Disney Plus, you're shelling out $140 a year for virtue signaling shows targeting mythical modern audiences. Plus, a theater visit could cost you $40 or more. Ouch. Now imagine a platform where fresh perspectives, insightful interviews, and engaging discussions are at your fingertips. That's no Soundbites Allowed. And the best part? It's free with an option to support only if you choose. While Disney Plus ticks off virtue signal checkboxes, no Soundbites Allowed offers real talk and sharp analysis. Perfect for those who crave depth and clarity. Why break the bank for entertainment? Subscribe to No Soundbites Allowed and enjoy meaningful content without the hefty price tag.
And hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It is September 15th at 2:30 p.m. I am happy to be here with each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us on this program. For those who are new to the program, we want to welcome you and thank you for being part of our audience. We do long-form political commentary, and that means that every Sunday and all the time, what we do is we look back at how did we get to where we are today and how will we go forward from this moment. And to do that, we have to believe in the First Amendment. We support the freedom of speech, not just in America, but around the world. And whether your government likes it or not, whether or not the social media giants agree with it or not, we support the First Amendment, and we like to hear your voice on all these issues that are affecting each and every one of us every day, no matter what country, no matter what part of the world you may be in. So we look forward to seeing all of your comments, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media that you find this on. And we appreciate if you would provide us with a like, a share, if you would subscribe so we're able to get our voice out, because we are heavily suppressed because we believe in the First Amendment. Now, that being said, let me go forward and talk a little bit about what's going on. Now, again, for the people who are new to the channel, we always like to deal with breaking news first, then we go into the international, then we go into the domestic. At all times, we're looking at how each of these affect each other. We're always looking at the comments to see what you have to say. Of course, you can super chat us on YouTube and on Rumble, our two main formats that we're out on, and we are happy to see that, but we're looking forward to seeing your comments. You can also call into the program. Oops, I forgot to set up my phone. Give me a second. And yep, making sure the phone is on and live for you right now. Yes, it is. And you can call into the program at 929-715-8569. You can disagree. We're happy to hear voices that disagree with some of the things that we believe in and have that conversation, because it's by having conversations that things get to improve. It's the only way that things get to improve. So we do look forward to that. There's a lot that's happened this week. There's a lot that's going on. So we want to try and get into that. Obviously, there is the debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris that was on Tuesday. That was a big event, and it had somewhat of an impact. It didn't really move the dial for either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And why was that? What was it about that that really didn't change anything? We'll talk a little bit about that. Then we found out on Friday, Kamala Harris did an interview in Pennsylvania with a local news broadcast, ABC News, Channel 6. Not a lot of people were aware that she did a solo, one-on-one interview with Brian Taff, a local Philadelphia ABC News reporter. It was only 11 minutes long. That's insanely short. I mean, that's ridiculously short for the vice president of the United States and someone who is running for the presidency of the United States. That's an incredibly short period of time. It's ridiculous. And we did, in fact, watch the entire debate. We actually covered the whole thing. We'll talk a little bit about that. But there's a lot more that is happening that has been obscured because of the 2024 election and whether or not you should vote Democrat or Republican now that we're in election season. This is the official mass general election season for the public. Politicos have been into this for 18 months, but what has been happening is very important both internationally and locally, and it's affecting a lot of people's lives. Let me take a moment to explain what I mean. One of the first things is last week we highlighted that the Biden-Harris administration admitted that they had caught an illegal alien who was voting in the 2016, the 2020, and the 2022 election on the federal level, not local level, federal. She was a Guatemalan illegal alien who had stolen an identity and was able to vote in elections. And we happen to point out, if this is consistent and only 0.25%, not a full percent, not 25%, if only 0.25% of illegal aliens in America are able to vote, then that is enough to change several states' elections. That would be over 200,000 votes, and that is enough to change several states' turnouts and therefore change who gets to be president in the United States. That's with an error rate of only 0.25%. That is ridiculously low. I mean, you can't really set the bar any lower than that. And we said last week that if it happened and we've caught this by the federal government and we see it has been happening since 2016, 8 years ago, then it is something that is happening far more widespread, which is why we need to have audits in every single state after every single election. This is to bring back electoral confidence in the American people, that your one vote does count. We need to do this. But a lot of people said at the time, well, Mike, that sounds great and all, but I don't think it's such a big deal. It's not that important. In fact, that's what Democrats have been saying. It's not real. It's not important. It doesn't matter. Well, that's because it's benefiting them. Illegal aliens aren't going to vote for Republicans and conservatives who are going to kick them out of the country. They're not going to vote for Republicans and conservatives who are saying close the border, don't let these illegal aliens, let their other family members, their friends, to come into America and destroy our infrastructure. It's not in their best interest. So they will vote for Democrats who believe in open borders, who believe in putting illegal aliens into 3- and 4-star hotels, giving them $60,000 to live, $13,000 a year to buy food without having a job, all on taxpayers' backs. Meanwhile, they're taking American citizens and throwing them into the middle of the street and saying, hey, become homeless and survive. This is what is happening in America. This is why New York City is spending $5 billion a year on illegal aliens. That's just 200,000 illegal aliens. 200,000, that's it. We have 8.4 million in the United States. Also, we see in Boston, that is going bankrupt because of illegal aliens. Chicago, Detroit, LA. We are seeing this across America in the top 20 Democratic cities across America. They're all going bankrupt because of illegal aliens. And we're seeing that happen in smaller towns across America as well. So I think there's a vested problem here, something that is in the top 10. In fact, in almost every poll that has been done about the sentiment of American citizens in the voting, what top issues for the 2024 election, illegal immigration is in the top 5. Top 5. This is a major issue. Illegal immigration is absolutely devastating Americans, and of course it is affecting the rest of the world, as people are trying to come to America and they are empowering cartels and drug gangs and sex slave gangs. And and just slavery in general. They're increasing that number because of the availability, the opportunity to walk into America. But there were a lot of people who told us at the time, Mike, but you don't understand. It's one time. It's not real. Democrats keep saying it's not real. It's not an issue. It doesn't matter. It's not affecting anything. Okay. And that's when we find out that yesterday, the state of Oregon, the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, admitted that they have been registering illegal aliens, over 300 illegal aliens, since 2021. Now, this wasn't major news. This didn't hit the national news media. This is being suppressed. It's not a story that people want you to know about. But the fact is that just yesterday, they admitted that the state of Oregon has been registering non-citizens. Now, what they will tell us is, oh, well, even though they registered 300 illegal aliens, only 2 of those illegal aliens were voting. Well, that's ridiculous. That's almost, that's about 1%. And that's far, far higher than our minimum estimate of 0.25% of illegal aliens voting in elections. They're at 1%. That's 4 times as big as our hope of how small the number would be. 400% higher than our estimate. And now multiply that through the state of Oregon and California, New York, Massachusetts, Michigan, Maryland. All of a sudden you have numbers that are changing. What about in Pennsylvania? What about in Ohio? All of a sudden we're starting to see very different numbers if this is what we are seeing. And one of the things that I found very interesting in this article by the Associated Press, one of the only non-regional news media sources that actually carried this story. Almost no one wants you to know about this. The left-leaning news media does not want to tell you about it, and therefore this story is basically breaking because people don't know it exists. And we're just finding out about this. And I just found out about this literally a minute before I went live. And so what we see in the story is that there are 300. They registered for a driver's license because Oregon requires or allows illegal aliens to get a driver's license. They shouldn't because they are illegal. They don't have a right to drive in America. It is in fact a crime for them to have insurance, to have a job, to pay for that insurance. They shouldn't be driving vehicles. There's no reason for it. They can't use it to go to work. They're illegal. They can't use it to travel around. They're illegal. They do not belong on our roads. They don't belong in our nation. Whether or not you like that has nothing to do with, that's what the law says. And as a society of law, we have to enforce the law that exists. But we have states and cities like Oregon, like New York City, like LA and California that are sanctuary cities and states that are enabling this infrastructure breakdown. And therefore, they're enabling these illegal aliens to accidentally be registered to vote and therefore potentially changing the outcome. Now, according to the Oregon Department of Transportation, they're saying, well, it was basically just a data entry issue. We made a mistake and they were improperly coded, human error. It wasn't anything malicious, but they're likely, and so they say that, and then they end it with, and they're likely to find more of these mistakes. More of these illegal aliens got a driver's license and were automatically registered to vote in the state of Oregon. And obviously, with the more of them getting registered, some of them will go out and vote. We don't know. This could be tens of thousands of individuals. There could be thousands who have voted in Oregon State at levels of, at the federal level, at the local level, the city level. They may be voting in Oregon elections and may have been doing this from at least 2019, which means the 2020 election, 2022 for the midterms, and now in 2024. It's very possible thousands could be voting, changing who gets elected at the city level, at the state level, as senators, as members of Congress. We don't know. The state of Oregon doesn't know. They have no idea how big this problem is. They just know, oh, the problem is happening. Now, the one thing that isn't being described in this story, especially by the Associated Press, why were they checking? Why did Oregon all of a sudden, about 50 some odd days before the next election, the 2024 presidential election, why were they checking for illegal aliens being registered to vote? How did they figure that out? They just literally, on Friday, they acknowledged that, oops, we just found 300 illegal aliens. And they have driver's licenses and they're registered to vote. Oops, it just came up. What were you doing to find that out? Where'd that number come from? It didn't just pop up on your system. Somebody had to do something. You were looking for something. Were members of Oregon looking for this error? Were they trying to audit their system? What happened? Did someone actively try to purposefully register an illegal alien, and that's when they noticed that this error had happened more than once, and so then they checked into it, and then they found at least 300 easy examples, and God knows how many potentially tens of thousands of others that exist in their system. Enough to change election results. And I can tell you, at the local level, members of Congress, I used to live in the New York 22nd District. I've seen several elections for the U.S. Congress, representatives of Congress, that the elections were less than 100 votes, made the difference between a Democrat and Republican, whether Anthony Brindisi or Claudia Tenney were able to win. This has happened multiple times in upstate New York, where literally I've seen votes as close as single digits. And we have illegal non-citizens, illegal aliens voting in elections. And if it's happening in Oregon, which has a mandate to give or has a requirement as a sanctuary state to give illegal aliens a driver's license, and the state automatically registers people who get a driver's license to vote, well, that's California, that's New York, that's Illinois. There are several states where these individuals are registering to vote. And what if, following this line, what if you get registered to vote, you get a driver's license, you're registered to vote, but you move to another state? And now you say, oh, well, I'm transferring my driver's license and my registration to this new state. How many, potentially hundreds, thousands of individuals may be in that category? We have no idea. But when we hear Democrats tell us, oh, this isn't happening, it's not real, it's not a problem, that's them protecting their advantage. Because these illegal aliens aren't voting Republican. I guarantee you, if they were voting Republican, Democrats would be saying, we have to audit the system. We have to make sure we purge these individuals. They should never have the chance to vote. That's what they would say if the advantage was for Republicans. But because the advantage is for Democrats, because it's self-serving, it is, call it selfish, self-serving, self-preservation, whatever you want to call it, these illegal aliens aren't going to vote conservative. They're going to vote progressive because it's in their best interest monetarily, in terms of staying in this nation. It's for their own good. Therefore, Democrats say it doesn't exist. I think that's just evil. I think that's a massive problem. And we now have the proof. Again and again. We've gotten the proof from Department of Homeland Security last week. We now have even more evidence, so we know on the federal level, we know on the state level, this is happening, and it may be enough to change our nation. We have a problem. We need to do audits. It's just that simple. If anyone disagrees with me on that, if there's anyone on the left that says, Mike, yes, you have this evidence now, and this evidence presupposes an even bigger problem, and we should ignore it, please explain to me why. If you think it's not a big deal with numbers that you don't know how big the number is, we just know it's bigger than the numbers that we have right now. That's the one thing we can say without any question. The numbers are larger than the numbers we know of. And potentially those numbers are in the thousands, if not tens of thousands, which is more than enough to change the result of virtually any election at the local, the state, and potentially the federal level. That is a fact. It's not a question. It's not an if. But, I'm just the bad guy. My channel gets suppressed because I present you the evidence that the news media doesn't want to talk about. There's a reason why CNN and MSNBC, ABC News, why the New York Times don't want to talk about this, why they constantly tell you it's not real, don't believe it. These are the same people who also told you, oh, Hunter Biden's laptop, that's not real. It's fake news. Oh, 2 years later, oh, by the way, it's true. Every word of it is true. It was always true. They just didn't want to tell you about it. These are the same people that told you Russia, the collusion. It was Russian interference. They screamed that every single day. 3.5 years later, $35 million of your taxpayer dollars in investigations, 4 investigations. And the answer is, oh, that was a lie. Even though Rachel Maddow got on the TV for 2-3 years in a row, every night telling you, Adam Schiff, Representative Adam Schiff, who's a congressman in California, getting on Rachel Maddow's show on almost nightly basis, telling you, oh yeah, this conspiracy is real. Didn't exist. Never happened. There is no evidence. And everything that we could find out said that Democrats were involved in actually a conspiracy with Russia, not the Republicans. Oh, now we can't talk about that story anymore. Has to be dropped. You can't talk about it. Even though this is what the evidence, the investigations actually found. Oh, now we just don't talk about it anymore. The lie is out there. People still think it's real, and no one wants to talk about the truth because that might change the way you vote. That might not fortify the 2024 election. And therefore, any channel that does bring it up, anyone who does point out these facts as they exist, well, you have to suppress those channels. It's terrifying, folks. Our freedom is at risk. And trust me, I want the most free, the most fair, the most transparent elections we can have. And America can do that and usually does do that. I want the person, the best person to win. I want the American voice to be heard. Period. Whether that means someone on the left or the right wins, do I have a preference? Yes, I want people on the right to win. But I want the voice of America to be heard. And is that such a terrifying thing? Why are Democrats terrified of it? Because they think they won't win in a fair fight? Because they need every advantage? I don't know. But I can tell you there's a problem. There is an absolute problem, and it is affecting why aren't people voting as much as they used to? Why is it that we see regularly about 55% of the nation vote in presidential elections on average, and on the off years when it's not a presidential election, we get closer to about 40% of people are voting in elections. The numbers have been going down for over 100 years. Why is voter apathy growing? Maybe it's because we get to see these kind of gimmicks, these kind of actions that are happening in the background, which are making us be like every other nation, where we don't trust our elections. We don't trust our elected officials. We don't trust that the best person won or that this was a fair fight. We think this was all manipulated. We're like every other country in the world. We were the pinnacle, and we are lowering ourselves to the status of every other nation. We're not lifting the world up. They're bringing America down into the dirt with everyone else. It's kind of sad. So we do need to address this. Seriously, massively, we have to address this. It is so important. But that's what I believe is breaking news. I think it's important. I think most people are not aware of this news story. Again, this is coming from the Associated Press. So anyone who's say, but Mike, you're just being a Republican. The Associated Press is left-leaning. They're, depending on how you want to look at it, many people say they're neutral, but they're left-leaning news. This isn't coming from the RNC. This isn't Republican news. It's not Fox News or any of the other news sources on the right. This is on the left. It's coming from the state government. And the state government of Oregon is Democratic. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me that I get upset about this, but I think it's very important that we talk about this. I don't think it's just me. I could be wrong. Again, I look forward to seeing the comments. Again, if anyone disagrees with me, you can call in to 929-715-8569. Please tell me why you think it's not a big deal. Or if you happen to be, if you want to talk about something else, that's fine. Or you can even chat or super chat. I'm perfectly happy to hear your voices. But this is a problem facing America. With that being said, I also want to point out another problem that's facing America before we get into the international. I am currently fighting against YouTube. Yes, we are. Again. This time, we're fighting with YouTube because of my second channel. Some people may have noticed we have a second channel where I do things like with Venom. I did a analysis, a review of the Venom 3, Venom: The Last Dance trailer. And I did a review of that. And I was talking a little bit about that movie. I thought it was kind of interesting. The first time I saw the trailer, I thought it was good. Second time I watched the trailer, not so much. I noticed all the problems, the things that I think could be issues in that film, which leaves me thinking it's like a 6 out of 10. I think the film will be mid. That's what I had to determine. But that's on my second channel. But when I did that, all of a sudden, one of the things, I also play video games. I have a show every Saturday. Every Saturday at, Saturdays at 3 o'clock. I do broadcasts on multiple channels. The live stream for my second thing, which is more about movies and sci-fi and entertainment. And this Saturday, coming up on the, 21st, 22nd, it'll be with Larry Sharp. Larry Sharp will be with me. We'll be going through the top 10 sci-fi villains, my list versus his list. So it's a little bit of a challenge, a versus challenge, a top 10 sci-fi villain challenge. Who does Larry Sharp think are the top 10? Who do I think are the top 10? Why do we think that? It'll be kind of interesting to see. But like I said, so on that channel, I was playing a video game. The video game had audio, had music in the background. YouTube decided to hit that channel, that video game playthrough, gameplay, and they hit it with 13 consecutive, 13 copyright strikes. They assume that the same song in the background of the game belonged to 13 different people and corporations, all at the same time. It's not physically possible. It is impossible. Mind you, they suppressed the hell out of the channel. They suppressed the hell out of the video. And when I pointed that out to YouTube and said, you can't have 13 simultaneous people all claiming the same music at the same time. Your system is broken. And their answer was delete your tweet. That's their answer. That was what YouTube told me. Delete the tweet. Hide this from the public. Don't talk about this, or we will flag you. They will suppress me. That they will suppress my channel. They will suppress my voice because I caught them in a lie. I caught them with their system being broken. And their answer was, shut up. Don't tell anyone about it. So I want you to know. I made this public. You can see it on my Twitter. You can see the image. I'm just letting you know. So every content creator, every YouTube advertiser out there, everybody who is watching, this is how this is affecting you. This is the First Amendment. It is a direct attack against the First Amendment. To say you can't point out the problem in their system, a system that is obviously broken, a system that is only built to silence people, to stop them from talking about anything. This was from a video game playthrough. It wasn't about world politics, who you're going to pick in an election. This was me playing a video game, a brand new one, an open world survival game, and they said, you can't do that. Their system was broken, and I highlighted it. And they then demanded, because Google has a monopoly, and YouTube is part of the monopoly of Google. They said, shut up or we will flag you. We will punish you. We will deny you access to the public. We will deny you the opportunity to get monetized. We will deny you the ability to make a living. And that is suppression. That is oppression. So whether you like video games or not, whether you want to see movie reviews or not, that's up to you. You don't have to. Whether you want to see me and Larry debate next week on Saturday at 3 p.m., that's up to you. But I want you to understand what we are facing, why I say it's so important to have your like, your share, and your subscription, because this is the battle we're fighting. We're fighting for the First Amendment. We're fighting for your right to say what you think, even if you don't agree with me. And that's okay. You don't agree. You think I'm absolutely wrong. Support this channel anyway. Support the fact that I can have this conversation so that you can have the conversation you want to have. That being said, let's move on. I do want you to know that we did cover, I live streamed the entire Trump-Harris debate from Tuesday night. We started about an hour before the debate. We went live. We were talking about what we expected. We were revealing that Kamala Harris has finally put forward her website. And we'll go into this a little bit later in the show. But she finally presented some of her policies, so to speak. In fact, for every paragraph, every issue, she had about 275 words per issue that you may have, like on immigration, on crime, on high food prices. She had a 700-word blurb, about half a typewritten page. And in that, there is literally only one sentence of actual policy. About 20% of the entire word salad that she was throwing at the public actually was policy. And it didn't make sense. But that was meant to distract you. And so we covered that before the debate so people knew where she came from. And in the debate, she basically just quoted everything that was on her website. Every single policy position was a direct quote, was almost a direct quote from her policy page. That's it, including all of the fluff, all of the distraction, all of the non-substantive information. She was basically quoting all that back during the ABC debate. And I thought the ABC debate was miserable. I thought it was horrendous. Let me see. We have a comment here. So we got a couple of comments. Let's see. User has been banned, has joined us. Hey, user. And user says, apparently, shots fired as Trump was leaving a golf course in Florida. What? That's breaking news. Hang on. Please bear with me, folks. Okay. Thank you, user. User has been banned. Just notified us that the Secret Service is responding to a shooting near Donald Trump as he left his golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida, according to law enforcement sources. And I have on the screen with us right now, this is a top story. It is breaking news. The New York Post 33 minutes ago at the beginning of the show said that Donald Trump, shots fired near him. The Independent says that shots were fired at Donald Trump at his Donald Trump golf club where he was playing. The Daily Mail say the shots were fired at the golf club. Trump's campaign, according to the AP, says that he is safe. Let me check on this. Is there anyone else? Let's see. So 34 minutes ago, 11 minutes ago, The Guardian, 11 minutes ago. Trump is safe after gunshots reported in his vicinity. NBC, 6 minutes ago. Trump campaign says that Donald Trump is safe. What, you're going to say former president? Say Donald Trump. Daily Beast, I don't care what they have to say. AP. So the most credible source, The Guardian, seems to be the most credible source that is relatively neutral. This is an internationally credible source. So let's see what they have to say. Politico is reporting, Politico reports, and Politico is left-leaning. Politico reports that gunshots in question fired at the Florida Trump National Golf Club where Donald Trump was golfing. Let's see. He is safe. Reuters could not independently determine where Trump was at the time. Meredith McGraw had reported the gunshots in question fired at the golf club. So there isn't any real news on this at the moment. No one knows what actually happened. Where is Donald Trump? Was there shots at Donald Trump? Was it another assassination attempt? Is unclear. This is as of 12 minutes ago. So this is the most up-to-date, credible international news source that I can find. I know people will say, well, Mike, you could have gone to NBC. Yes, they're a news source. They're not exactly credible, and they are biased. We know that. So I want to get a non-biased, or at least not U.S. biased news source. I'd rather go overseas to see what they have to say because they don't have the same bias that ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, that they have. As an example, let's take a look. I'll show you what I mean. So let's go to, so we know what was just said by the Guardian. Where is the NBC coverage? There it is. So NBC, Trump campaign says former president is safe following possible gunshots in his vicinity. Well, it wasn't. We don't know it was in his vicinity. We know it was at the golf club, and we know that Donald Trump was at the golf club. That doesn't mean it's in his vicinity. That's a very different thing. If you shoot at someone 15 feet away from me, that's in my vicinity. If you shoot somebody in the Bronx, well, even though I'm in the Bronx, that's not my vicinity. It's not the same thing. They go on to say the former president was on the golf course and was immediately rushed to safety on Sunday. Unconfirmed if the shots were in fact fired. Okay, so now, according to 9 minutes ago, NBC News, they don't think it was real. And I can say that because NBC is now putting into the mind of the public that this wasn't real. Politico said that it happened. The Guardian is saying that it happened. So international news, generally neutral news, are saying that shots happened. We don't know who did it. We don't know the details, but there were shots. NBC is saying this is a hoax. Really? How do you have that evidence, NBC? Where do you get that from? So this is why I said, when I look at American news media, there's a bias. NBC is the only one saying that this is a hoax, potentially, because they don't like Donald Trump. Let's see. Trump campaign said Trump is safe. Gunshots rang out near him on his golf course. So they're saying, they're saying the Trump campaign, who did not tell anyone else that the gunshots were near Donald Trump, told NBC that they were near Donald Trump. Okay, suddenly NBC's getting news that no other internationally credible news agency is getting. I doubt it. And the very second thing, they put doubt into the American people's minds. It is still unconfirmed if shots were in fact fired. Only NBC is suggesting that this didn't happen. Only NBC is trying to say that this is a hoax. Only NBC is trying to downplay this and to turn this into a negative spin against the Trump campaign. Only NBC. This is the bias that they're putting in here. They're putting doubt into the American people for a political advantage. No one else in the world, I just showed you what the United Kingdom, the Guardian, what they had to say at the same time that NBC is putting out their news report. They're at the same time. Why is NBC saying this when no one else is saying that? It's because they have a bias. I'm showing you the bias. A source familiar with the matter told NBC News that Trump was immediately rushed to safety, and the campaign was also telling you that. In a statement, Trump campaign spokesman Stephen Chung said, President Trump is safe following gunshots in his vicinity. No further details at this time. Okay, so you have a direct statement from the campaign with a named person. This isn't an unknown source. I mean, NBC saying a source familiar. Who's your source? We know where the source is from the Trump campaign. They have a named individual that is saying gunshots happened. NBC is saying, maybe not. Wait a minute. Who's telling you that it didn't happen? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Why would you try and debunk this when there's no evidence that it didn't happen? This isn't Jussie Smollett. This is Donald Trump in a campaign for the 2024 election. What is NBC doing? They're playing propaganda games. They are trying to bias the public against this. They are trying to bolster and fortify the 2024 election for Democrats. That's what's happening in real time, and I am showing you the evidence right now. The Secret Service, in conjunction with the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, is investigating 2 p.m. the president is safe. This is according to Secret Service. I think the Secret Service would tell you if it was a hoax, if it didn't happen, the Secret Service would tell you that. The Secret Service would not evacuate former President Donald Trump because of gunshots that were in his vicinity if they weren't happening, if it didn't happen. They're not like that. They don't just jump forward because a balloon popped. They evacuated the president. They had a reason. Otherwise, they would say it's not real, that they didn't evacuate Donald Trump. So they did, in fact, according to the Secret Service, they did evacuate Donald Trump. That means something happened. Everyone is saying it was a gunshot. It had to be extreme, whatever happened, to evacuate Donald Trump, to remove him into a safe place. Therefore, something serious happened. Everyone says that serious thing is a gunshot. NBC says, maybe not. This is a hoax. Fake news. Just like they said that the Hunter Biden laptop was fake news. It's not real. Oh, Joe Biden getting money from the Chinese government through his son? Fake news, not real. Oh, well, you know what was real? The Ukraine phone call with Donald Trump. Yeah, that was a violation of law. Oh, that was a hoax. That didn't actually happen. Oh, Donald Trump, he insulted soldiers. Oh, well, that was a hoax. That didn't actually happen. Oh, Russia collusion. You know, Donald Trump was colluding with Russia. Oh, that was a hoax. That didn't happen. Jussie Smollett, he was attacked by MAGA people in Chicago. Oh, that was a hoax. That didn't happen. But don't worry about the credibility and the consistent propaganda of NBC News and ABC News, the left-leaning news in America. Don't worry about that. Trust them. This is now a hoax because they're saying it might be a hoax. When all of the evidence, all of the quotes, the named individuals are all telling you it's real. My God, folks, really? Let me see here. Let me go on with this NBC. A senior law enforcement official briefed on the incident told NBC News Trump was on the golf course when the sound of gunfire was heard in the nearby distance. Okay, again, vicinity. That's questionable. No one else has said it was near Trump, except NBC. As a precaution, Secret Service moved him to safety. No evidence that Trump was targeted. No evidence that he was targeted. Also, no evidence that says he wasn't targeted. We don't know. But it obviously was of enough concern. It was enough of a real threat that the Secret Service moved Trump. Local police are looking into the cause of the sound of what may have been gunfire. Again, this is NBC News downplaying this. This is NBC News inserting doubt into the article that no one else has inserted. And it is highly unlikely it wasn't a balloon because Secret Service took it as being real. Secret Service knows the difference. They train to understand the difference between a car backfiring and a gunshot going off. And they would have to have some serious reasons to believe it was a gunshot and not some other sound. So I just want you to see. So again, that's the NBC News article on this. And I will be adding links at the end of the show for everything that I am talking about. But again, going to The Guardian, which is going live at the same time as NBC News, and they don't have the same information. They're not saying that, as we had just showed you previously, they didn't say that this was a hoax, that this was fake, that this was anything but a gunshot at the golf course that may or may not have been an assassination attempt, that Trump was moved from the golf course because they did think it was a serious thing. So I think there's a big difference. And I think you can see how that difference is playing out. Look at this. Now they have their breaking news campaign, Trump safe, following gunshots in the vicinity. But NBC is saying that it's not real. That's manipulation. I believe that's propaganda. I think you're watching propaganda in real time, engineered by NBC and the left-leaning news media, that they are trying to alter the way that the public sees this election. Okay, let me look at some of the comments here. User has been banned says, it's interesting how they do that. Now, guys, you don't have to agree with me. You can say, Mike, you just don't understand. Okay, maybe you think I don't. I'm trying to highlight to you, this is how propaganda is created and spread in real time. And that it is happening in real time right now in America. That this isn't some kind of story in a movie or a book or a TV show. This is how propaganda real time is spread. You have certain elements of the news media that decide that they are going to interject just a little. All it takes is one sentence And all of a sudden, everything is cast into doubt. They want you to doubt Donald Trump. They want you to distrust Donald Trump so that you don't vote for Donald Trump in the 2024 election. So they suggest unilaterally, while all other news media sources are saying this happened, they suggest it's not real. They suggest that it's a hoax, that it's fake. They are editing the information. They have named individuals who are going on the record to tell you this happened. They have named organizations, the Secret Service, that are telling you something happened. And instead of letting you have the facts and developing the story as it goes, they're inserting their political agenda to tell you what they feel. And hopefully that will affect the way you vote. It's in real time, folks. I'm showing you the evidence in real time. And I've shown you, and you can't say, The Independent is a credible international news organization. NBC is a news organization. Credibility, questionable. Does that make sense, folks? Does that make sense why I do what I do? Because no one else in the news media, they're going to pick a side. You're going to see some people who are going to say it was absolutely real and it's Donald Trump and blah, blah. It was done by the left. They'll come up with their own conspiracy theories. Absolutely. And you'll see some other people who are going to come out and they're going to say, oh, absolutely not. This was absolutely something that only happened because of the Donald Trump campaign. They made it up. And that's the far left. They're going to go with that, with no evidence to back them up, because they want to change people's emotions. If they convince people that this is fake, then they're not going to look at any of the news that comes out about the story after that. They've already made the emotional leap of faith. So everything else, which may include all of the evidence of what did actually happen, they will never see it because they've already tuned it out. But they've also planted the seed, I can't trust the Trump campaign. This is a gimmick. Not because that's the truth, but because NBC planted that seed of doubt. And they did that for a political gain. That's evil. That is deceptive. That's authoritarian. It destroys the First Amendment. This is exactly opposite of why the First Amendment was created. Okay, that's my thought on that. Now, again, if you think I'm wrong, I'm happy to hear your opinion. If you think, no, Mike, but you just don't understand why NBC is saying this and no one else is saying this, why none of the other mainstream news media, why no one's saying that, maybe you have a reason. Maybe you have a reason why you believe NBC. I don't. I don't have any reason. And everyone now is starting to talk about the news story. And I'm just trying to see, let me go to the really far left. Let's see this is the Daily Beast. It's about as far left as you can get. So very disputed whether or not they're credible. Shots fired as Trump golfs at his West Palm Beach club in the reports. This is their breaking news. Okay. Multiple shots were fired at former Donald Trump's golf club. I didn't hear anyone say multiple shots. Did you see multiple shots in any of the other news? Per Politico, Trump was at the club and golfing at the time. The former president was never in danger. Now they're saying that's what the New York Post says. Reported by two individuals targeting one another exchanged gunfire outside the Trump International Golf Club. So it wasn't, according to them, it's not even on the golf club. Trump campaign said Trump is safe with shots in his vicinity. So they're not even. This is interesting. The Daily Beast is one of those supremely far left organizations, incredibly far left. And even they will not say that this is fake. Even they won't say that this is a hoax. They're as far left as you get. They're socialists, communists. They're the progressive left. They hate Donald Trump with an absolute burning passion. Even they won't say what NBC said. That just tells you everything right there. User has been banned says they seem to spin the story and build off each other. Well, that's modern news media. Rather than actually look at the facts, what you will often see is that once a somewhat credible news source comes out with a story, they literally copy paste all the others so that they can be part of that news cycle, that breaking news cycle. Rather than get confirmation, they just copy and paste what anyone and everyone else says, and they don't actually confirm for themselves. That's why the Daily Beast is saying, well, the New York Post has said and Politico has said, okay. That's why I went to The Independent, an internationally credible news agency outside of the United States. And I'm getting their corroboration before I went to anyone else. See, I went to someone who's actually getting their own independent sourcing rather than, okay, I'm copy pasting from one source and another source, or NBC, they're just making it up. It may not have happened. No one says it didn't happen. Now, the New York Post is saying it may have happened outside of the actual golf course, so it was in the vicinity, but not in the golf course, and not targeting Donald Trump. That's what the New York Post apparently is saying. Okay, and other news media are saying it was in the vicinity, it was in the area. Everyone else has said there was one gunshot. The Daily Beast is saying several, but no one said it didn't happen. Only NBC News. Even if you want to say, but Mike, it didn't happen on the golf course. It wasn't targeting Donald Trump. It was two other guys doing their own stupid thing. Okay, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. The gunshot did happen. It was in the vicinity of the golf course. Donald Trump was golfing. He was evacuated. It did happen. NBC said it didn't happen, that none of this existed, that this was fake, that it was a hoax. They said that to their audience so that they would vote Democrat. That's how propaganda is played. And I just showed you that in real time. That's why you should like, share, and subscribe to us, folks, because I will give you the truth and I will explain the truth in real time. I'm showing you the real-time evidence before they go back and redo their edits, before, as we are seeing, companies are trying to rewrite this story as they go. They'll eventually do their own investigations and they will edit the story. That's the difference. This is why I don't trust U.S. news media by itself. Why I often look at international news to understand what's happening in U.S. politics. Because I don't trust the U.S. news media to tell the correct story. They will change things. This is why I look at multiple news sources to read about the same news story, because I don't trust them. And they've justified why I don't have that trust. All right. So I'm going to move forward because we know that Donald Trump is safe. It seems to have not been an assassination attempt. I thank you, user, for bringing this up to our attention so that I could address it as quickly as possible to let my audience, let you guys know what's going on, and to highlight the propaganda happening real time right before your eyes. Thank you for that. I love when I can show people the reality of what's happening in our politics. So, moving forward the show, we were just talking about the fact that, again, just like with the propaganda we saw, the shooting didn't happen, is the same thing that we were just talking about in Oregon. Illegal aliens aren't voting, except they are voting. Illegal aliens aren't registered, except they are registered. And now we have multiple examples of it. Well, okay, let's move forward. I wanted to also talk about what's happening in North Korea. Because again, this is not a mainstream news story. Yes, it was in Reuters, it's international, but in the United States, there's very little conversation about North Korea. Very little conversation about the threat North Korea poses not only to the United States, but to our allies like Japan, like South Korea, where we have ironclad treaties that guarantee, that obligate and mandate the automatic action of the United States when they are threatened. Hang on. Sorry, I was just checking for any comments here. No, sorry. So, it's Larry telling me he's excited about the debate next week. But when I'm looking at this, North Korea, we're not looking at, we have obligations to Japan and to South Korea. We have treaties that guarantee that whether Japan or South Korea are right or wrong, that if they are in a military conflict, the United States must take their side. The United States must protect them, right or wrong. It doesn't matter. That's what the treaty actually says. It's one of the reasons why we have a Marine Corps base in Okinawa as we speak right now. And we've had that there since, what, the 1950s? So, to be clear, North Korea is a greater threat today in 2024 than he was in 2019. We have a bigger threat to the United States and Southeast Asia and global stability today under the Biden-Harris administration than under the Trump-Pence administration. That is a fact. We know that approximately a year ago, in the last year, approximately, North Korea created a brand new secret base to enrich uranium. This isn't me saying that. That's the evidence coming out from Reuters and the international news media. That North Korea created a new uranium enrichment facility to create fuel for nuclear bombs so that they can fire those bombs and threaten all of Southeast Asia. That is a fact. The disclosure of its secretive nuclear facility, they took 5 photos showing this brand new base and its ability to mass produce nuclear weapon materials. Most people, in Reuters' opinion, they believe that this is to influence the U.S. election, that North Korea is sending a message to Donald Trump and to Kamala Harris and saying, you can't forget about me, that you have to deal with North Korea. That as much as people want to talk about Ukraine, as much as people are talking about Iran, as much as we are worried about the potential of American hostages still being alive as they are held by Hamas, even as we are having a second undeclared war in the Red Sea with the Houthi terrorists, we cannot forget North Korea. And North Korea is making sure we don't forget. Because North Korea, not only did they show us they have this brand new base that is out there, and its only purpose is to make nuclear weapons materials, North Korea launched multiple 5 missiles this week. That was on September 11th, 9/11. On 9/11, North Korea fired 5 missiles to tell Kamala Harris and Joe Biden they still are a threat to America, that they are a threat to our allies. Now, mind you, it's 9/11. Most people weren't paying attention to it. Most people in America were worried and busy about 9/11. Here in the United States, they were still talking about the debate with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. No one was paying attention. But North Korea, our military should be aware. Our government, Joe Biden should be aware. By the way, where is Joe Biden? Let me ask that. Does anyone know where Joe Biden is? Does anyone know what Joe Biden is doing? We know he only works part-time from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., 5 days a week. He is a part-time zombie president. North Korea fired missiles at our allies and then showed us that they have expanded their ability to commit nuclear war. Where is Joe Biden? Where is his assurance to Japan, South Korea, to the Philippines, to the American people that this is not going to be a threat, that he is on top of this, that he is going to have negotiations? God help us, he's not going to send Kamala Harris for the third time back to South Korea. She insulted the South Koreans the first time she showed up. All Koreans, she insulted them the first time she showed up with an international incident seen around the world. The second time, she embarrassed the United States with her statement, which was about North Korea, not South Korea. It was an embarrassment for the United States. Again, did not help us. They won't send her back a third time. South Korea does not want to talk to Kamala Harris. They do not respect Kamala Harris. They don't want to hear a word about Kamala Harris because she screwed up the international politics that much. She is a disgrace in Southeast Asia. She's an embarrassment, specifically in South Korea. But no one else wants to hear from Kamala Harris either. So they can't send her as vice president or as the candidate of the Democrats for president. They can't send her back. So Joe Biden has to address this directly or have Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, to address these missiles that have been fired, to address the fact that there is a bigger nuclear threat in Southeast Asia than we thought there was last week. The threat and the danger has increased exponentially. What's the answer from the United States? With a country, North Korea, that is directly telling America that they're dangerous, that they are a threat to America first and foremost, our allies secondary. Where's the answer? Why wasn't this major news? Why aren't we seeing Joe Biden or Antony Blinken have an immediate response? Because you might not vote Democrat. Because you might not vote for Kamala Harris if you saw that they said they can't send Kamala Harris there. If you saw that Joe Biden can't answer this because he's asleep when the people in South Korea and North Korea, when they're awake, Joe Biden's asleep. And we don't know who's in charge of our country for the 18 hours a day that Joe Biden isn't competent, when he's not cognizant. Who's in charge of America? We don't know. It's not Kamala Harris. It seems to not be Antony Blinken. Who's actually in charge? No one can answer this. And because we don't have an answer for that, and Joe Biden's incompetent and incapable of being able to do the job of president, and because Kamala Harris is incompetent at trying to do the job of the vice president, they won't talk about it. Because you might not vote Democrat. They have to fortify the election. They've got to get Kamala as close to being over the line by November 5th as they can. They have to protect Democrats being elected in Congress and in the Senate. That means they just can't rock the boat by addressing international dangers to the United States and our allies. This is insane, folks. This is insane. North Korea fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles towards Japan in the sea between South Korea and Japan. They fired the missiles. It was over 220 miles that they fired these missiles. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida instructed officials to ensure the safety of ships and aircraft, but there seems to be no report of any of them being damaged. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, United States Military Forces, reaffirmed that the U.S. security commitment to South Korea and Japan remains ironclad. The military said that, not the commander-in-chief, not Kamala Harris, not our Antony Blinken's State Department. It was our military who were stationed there. Okay, that's not an official response by the United States government. That does not have the same weight as the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. It's not the same weight of an actually functional Vice President of the United States who's running for the presidency. This was as weak a response as you could possibly have. It is telling North Korea they can get away with anything. And it gets even worse when you think about it, because depending on there's a couple of sites that count how many missiles, rockets, ICBMs that North Korea fires. This database looks at their missiles. According to this specific database, which says that the last time that North Korea fired a missile was on April 1st. Obviously, they're not up to date because there was a missile being fired on September 11th. 5 of them. So they're out of touch. They have the wrong information here. They say that the number of tests historically have been 264, with over 69 of them, fully more than a third of them, all came in 1 year under Joe Biden. That was in 2022. In 2022 alone, that 1 year alone, North Korea fired more missiles, more rockets, more ICBMs to threaten the world than in the entire Obama-Biden administration. All 8 years of Obama, more than all of that combined, were fired by North Korea in 1 year. If you add in how many since 2021 and 2022 and 2023 and 2024, you have well over 100 rockets and missiles and ICBMs that have been fired to threaten Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, and the United States. They don't think that Joe Biden is strong. They don't think that Kamala Harris is strong. They don't fear the United States under weak Democrat leaders. They do not fear them. They didn't fear the Obama-Biden administration. They don't fear the Biden-Kamala administration. And I am absolutely sure they have no fear of the Kamala Harris, Tim Walz administration either. But they did react when they had to deal with Donald Trump. And they did reduce the number of missiles and rockets fired. And they did enter in negotiations, and they did stop firing missiles under the Trump administration. In fact, that was the first time since 2011 that North Korea did not fire a missile or a rocket or an ICBM. It was the first time. That's 8 years. That says something. And it says something very positive. But again, this source is a little bit off, because if you actually check yet another source, now these guys also haven't updated their information. The last time they updated their information was April 25th of 2023. They count differently than this organization. The CNS, North Korea Missile Test Database, has a different set of criteria for missiles and rockets and ICBMs than the Missile Threat the CSIS missile defense project, which has a different criteria. But the CSIS stopped providing data in April 25th of 2023, whereas the CNS is out of date and has not updated since April 1st of 2024. But I'm trying to let you see how accurately, as best as I can, this is the Biden administration. Look at the difference. That is when Kamala Harris went over and she insulted the North Korean President Moon. This is when she was overseas in Southeast Asia embarrassing the United States. That's what was happening. That was the result. And North Korea is sending their missiles that they're able to build because of the Biden-Harris administration. They're sending their missiles to Russia to attack the Ukraine, where we're having a proxy war. Do you see how this is all connected? They don't respect nor fear Joe Biden nor Kamala Harris. Because they do not fear them, they have no reason to fear them. They're building nuclear weapon fuel. They're building missiles and rockets. They're building so many of them that they are firing them off at levels never seen before under any other administration. Even if you take two administrations and put them together, they're firing off more rockets under the Biden-Harris administration than any other presidency beforehand, almost as many as every presidency beforehand combined, almost to that level. And they're sending off their missiles, their rockets, their ICBMs over to Russia to use against Europe, to use it against the Ukraine. These things are connected because North Korea has no respect nor fear of Biden-Harris. Russia is able to continue to attack people. They are directly connected. And the connection is the weakness of the Biden-Harris administration. Does anyone disagree with me on this? Does anyone think I am misunderstanding that international connection? Because I'm providing you every single source that I am drawing this conclusion from. I'm giving you international sources and information that is available to the rest of the world. It's not popular in the United States because you might not vote Democrat. But everywhere else in the world where they're not worried, they don't care about Kamala Harris. They don't care about Joe Biden. They're not there to protect Democrats. They have other issues, and everyone else in the world is paying attention to this, and everyone else in the world is saying, my God, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they're weak as hell, they're useless. That's what the world is saying. I think it's pretty self-evident, folks. Again, I'm providing you the evidence. This is where I am drawing my conclusions from. If someone has evidence that contradicts that says something different than that, I'd be happy to hear that voice. But I don't think there is another way to understand the data and the information. I don't think there is another way to interpret what the world thinks of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, or Donald Trump for that matter, because that's the exact opposite of what they think of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Kamala can say the world is laughing at Trump. They're not. They're terrified. No one believed it. When she said that during the debate, no one in the world believed her, except progressive Democrats in the United States, except for illegal aliens that have been registered and voting in the United States. They're the only people that agree with Kamala Harris. Everyone else in the world has a very different opinion. And they are abusing Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and America because they don't believe her. I wish I could say that that's the only problems we have to deal with. I wish I could say that it all ends right there. But when it comes to countries that are sending missiles, that are enabling the world to be less safe, countries that do not fear the United States under the Biden-Harris administration, it gets even worse. Because the Houthi terrorists, this is an Iran-backed terrorist organization that the Biden-Harris administration decided on day one in 2021, January 2021, they said, they're not terrorists. You just are being Republican. They are just rebels. They're nice guys. Let's send them some food and water. And most of all, we're going to give them a bunch of money for humanitarian aid to take care of themselves, because Republicans are mean and Republicans didn't want to give them food, water, or money. Republicans are just such bad guys. Donald Trump is just evil. And Joe Biden said the Houthis were no longer terrorists and gave them a bunch of money, food, and water. The Houthis took that money and they bought rockets, a lot of them. They gave that money to Iran to give us all the rockets and missiles that you can. And now, today, as a direct consequence of what the Biden-Harris administration has done, the hundreds of millions of dollars that they gave to the Houthi terrorists, that money is coming back and it is being used to attack tankers, oil tankers, military vessels in the Red Sea against the United States and our allies as we speak. The Houthis, according to I-24, International News 24, the Houthis hail new hypersonic ballistic missiles that they were able to get from Iran. Hypersonic missiles that we cannot shoot down. It doesn't matter that you have an Iron Dome. It doesn't matter that you're using the top technology of the United States. U.S. technology can't protect the United States from a hypersonic missile. That is a fact. That is confirmed by our government. That has been confirmed by the Pentagon. The U.S. cannot shoot down and cannot stop hypersonic missiles. That's why China's building hypersonic missiles, North Korea is building and shipping out hypersonic missiles, and Iran has been building hypersonic missiles with the money they got from the Iran nuclear deal under the Obama-Biden administration. Hundreds of billions of dollars that went to building missiles, rockets, and ICBMs because the Iran nuclear deal let them. It was allowed. And they got money and sanctions relief from the Democrats to be able to build those missiles that now allows them to put in hypersonic missiles that are being used against Israel and God knows whomever else. And no one can shoot them down. No one can shoot them down. How long until those same hypersonic missiles are used against Europe or the United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, South Korea, the United States, or one of our other allies? This should terrify people. And again, this isn't news that America wants to talk about. This isn't news that the left-leaning mainstream news media wants you as an American citizen to think about because you might vote differently. But the world is thinking about this, and this is all directly tied to the Biden-Harris administration. Kamala Harris is not respected anywhere in the world, anywhere. So she is seen as weak. And the fact that she is in a race that some say is 50-50 with Donald Trump, the world isn't afraid of the consequences of what they're doing. They're going to keep on going until they know they have a strong leader that they have to take a different action with, that they have to respect, and that they have to fear. Kamala Harris is not that person. Joe Biden is absolutely not that person. Nobody even knows where Joe Biden is. He's asleep somewhere, maybe on a beach. It's Sunday. It's after 4 p.m. He is asleep. He isn't involved. And everyone in the world knows it. They do not respect America right now. Am I misunderstanding something there? Am I not making it clear for everyone what is the threat that we are facing? What is the damage that we are facing? We're not even considering the fact that we now have individuals, Americans, are going to be, we had some individuals, 3 Americans and a Canadian, who went to the DR Congo, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Africa, Central Africa, one of the largest nations in the world, definitely one of the largest in Africa. I believe it's the second largest in Africa. And they were involved in an attempted coup. 3 Americans. Except they're not exactly American citizens. They're naturalized citizens. These are individuals who came from the Congo to the United States, became citizens, and then decided to go back to the Congo to fight a war. Now, on one level, I respect this. Your home nation is in turmoil. And so these individuals decided to go fight for their country because they thought they had a better idea of how to run the country. I can respect that. And it's one of the things that we often say about illegal aliens. Don't come to America, fix your country. If Mexico or Guatemala or Venezuela or Angola or China, if your country is screwed up, instead of coming to America, fix your country. Stay there, fight your battles, make your country great. I have no problem. Make Venezuela great again. Go for it. That's fantastic. Go and make Guatemala great again. Fantastic. Go for it. Go to your home country and make it great again. Don't run away and come to the United States. So on that level, these individuals who came to the United States, that would include Benjamin Zalman Pulon, and Marcel Malanaga, and Tyler Thompson, to an extent, I can respect that they left the United States, they went back to their home countries, and they decided they were going to try and fight to make their country what they thought better. I can get that. They lost. And the cost means that they're going to die. Now, the United States, some people are upset. I'm not. They made a choice. They went to a foreign country. They attempted a coup in that foreign country. They don't deny it. It is a fact that they did it. They're going to go and be killed. They have been sentenced to death. They should be. I respect why they went. The United States should not be involved in this. They broke the laws of a foreign sovereign country, and they are being punished according to the laws of that foreign sovereign country. It's the same reason why Brittany Griner should never have been released. We should never have made a deal for Brittany Griner. She got a deal because she was a black lesbian basketball player. That's it. She's a black Democrat lesbian, and she got a deal because she has a big following. That isn't a reason to get her out of the prison sentence that she earned. She admitted she broke international law. She broke the law of Russia. on purpose. She knew exactly what she was doing. She went into Russia with drugs. She knew it was illegal. She thought she was more powerful, more important than the law, and she was wrong. She admitted her guilt. She was convicted of the crime because she was guilty, and she was sentenced. Whether that sentence was what Americans would think is fair has nothing to do with it. She wasn't in America. She was in Russia. She was being punished by the Russian system. Duly punished because she committed the crime, and she admitted that. She should still be in jail. These guys going to Congo to commit a coup should get the death penalty. It's their fault. They did it. They failed. If they won, fantastic. They'd run the country. They didn't. That means they pay the price. And the price for trying to topple a government is death. We should not be involved in the United States. But a lot of people are concerned about this, and they want us to become involved in this conflict. There are people who say they want to try and save these guys. Utah Senators Mike Lee and Mitt Romney are engaged with the State Department at this moment, according to the New York Post. And I have to say to Senator Mike Lee, who is a Republican, and to Senator Mitt Romney, who is a Republican, at least a Republican name in Mitt Romney's case, a Republican in name only, a rhino. They should not have the United States State Department get involved. Not just because Joe Biden is weak and the United States will be taken advantage of, but because the guys are guilty. They did it. And they should be justly punished. It has nothing to do with them being Americans. They weren't doing this for the United States government. They weren't acting as agents or spies of the United States government. They independently went there. They were originally from that country, became naturalized citizens, and went back to have a coup. They knew the risk. They knew what they were doing. The United States government didn't tell them to do any of it. They're on their own. They get to, if the punishment is death penalty, they die. Senator Mike Lee, Senator Mitt Romney, you rhino, leave it alone. Now, some would say, but why are they getting involved in that? Why does anyone care about the Congo? Because the Congo is one of the few or one of the more stable Central African nations. So the more stable they are, the less illegal aliens we get coming to the United States. So we want them to be stable. The better off they are, the fewer of their refugees, their illegal aliens, are entering into our country. So that's a good thing. The more stable the Congo is, the less likely are we to get people from Angola or Chad or Niger or Uganda. We're less likely to have African illegal aliens coming into America because they'll go to the Congo instead, because that's the first closest nation that would be safe. So we want the Congo to be stable. Now, we would like the Congo to also be a good government. You don't always get everything you want. And that, just because they're stable doesn't mean that they're a good nation. Libya under Gaddafi was very, very stable, but he's a dictator. Well, Gaddafi, when he was alive, he was a dictator. Same thing with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Was Iraq stable? Absolutely. But he was a dictator. You don't always get everything you want. But those are some of the reasons why we want the Congo to be stable. In addition to that is the one thing that people don't generally talk about. The Congo has copper and cobalt. And we need cobalt in a bad way. Already, the United States, half the copper in the Congo is bought and used by the United States. So that's a big deal. That's a raw resource we need, and we're getting it from the Congo. So we want to have good relations with them on that level, but also because of the eco-fanatics in the United States, they want electric everything. You want an electric car, you want to have electric batteries for vehicles and everything else. Well, that requires cobalt. 80% of the cobalt mined in the world comes from the Congo. So the better deals and the better relationships we have with the Congo, the easier it is to get cobalt, which we need to make electric batteries and alloys, magnetics, that are used in climate change. So again, that brings us back to, should Senator Mike Lee, should Mitt Romney interfere? So it's not just, these are American citizens, these are naturalized citizens that decided to go back to their home country and fight a war that had nothing to do with America, but also in jumping into this, you're now jumping into the middle of potentially destabilizing a nation we want to be stable, that cuts down on illegal aliens, and you may screw up international trades for the resources of copper and cobalt, which the United States needs, especially if you believe in climate change. Does that make sense for people about how these things are interconnected? See, a lot of people don't necessarily see that, and I get it. No one was paying attention to the story about what happened in the Congo and the attempted coup. I wasn't paying big attention to it. Most people don't even know it. Most people don't even know where the Congo is, to be honest. If you put a map of Africa, people would not be able to find Central Africa, find where the Congo is. That being said, it still has an impact. And the more we allow senators and politicians to be involved in something they shouldn't be involved in, and what should be handled by the Biden-Harris administration, by the executive branch, that's their purview. Senators should not be trying to figure out, do we get involved? How do we get involved? No, that should be the Biden-Harris administration. In particular, this is something you would send the vice president to go and handle, except she's running for the presidency. She's in the middle of an election, so she can't go to the Congo and talk this out. On top of which, no one respects her and no one trusts her. If you send Kamala Harris to the Congo right now, we'll wind up seeing that place will be in the middle of a civil war, and the United States won't be able to get any copper or any cobalt because everyone will be pissed at us. Do not send Kamala Harris. Please do not. But at the same time, I have to say to Senator Mike Lee and Senator Rhino Mitt Romney, leave it alone. Leave it alone. I don't want anyone to die, but they made a choice. Let them live with their choices. It's just that simple. I know that may sound harsh to some people. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand why I'm saying this? Do you see how it's important for the United States that we don't get involved? Even though these are our naturalized citizens, don't get involved. Because it's not, it's very much exactly like with Brittany Griner. And the result of getting Brittany Griner, a convicted, confirmed criminal, getting her out of jail, reintroduced Victor Bout, the most notorious arms dealer in the world. The day that Victor Bout got out, almost immediately afterwards, there were more civil wars in the world, more conflicts in the world with warlords fighting back and forth than there had been while he was in captivity. The world was more peaceful and more stable before we traded Victor Bout for Brittany Griner than after. Literally, Brittany Griner is part of the reason why there are civil wars some civil wars and some genocides or attempted genocides in the world today. The civil war in the Sudan is directly connected to Victor Bout being released and able to sell weapons to the warlords in the Sudan because Brittany Griner needed to come to America to bounce a basketball and tell everyone that she's a lesbian. That's it. That's not worth it. I don't ever think we should make such a trade. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to the world. It's not worth it to the United States. It's not worth it. She should be rotting in a jail right now, and Victor Bout should be in an American jail right now. And the Sudan wouldn't be having essentially the same, can't say they wouldn't have any, they are not having the same civil war that is going on right now that threw 16,000 American citizens into the wind, that we don't know where they are. None of that would be happening if we just let Brittany Griner in jail. And we'd have more respect from the Russians. We'd have more respect from the Africans. We'd have more respect internationally if we just left her there. Mind you, Democrats might have lost a couple of votes. Yeah, they might have lost a couple of votes. But the world would be more peaceful. There's your trade-off. Okay. So, it is something that's very important. And of course, going back to the connection between Iran, Russia, it's not just that Iran is giving missiles to Russia. Russia is giving nuclear secrets to Iran, which very likely is coming from North Korea and China. And this is a problem because they don't respect us. And I know that, the G7, the leaders of the world, the big nations in the world, first world countries, are all condemning Iran because they keep giving missiles and rockets and hypersonic missiles to Russia. And Russia is going to use those hypersonic missiles against Ukraine. Possibly one day using it against Poland, possibly using it against Sweden, possibly hitting Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, Moldova, Germany. It's all possible. And that's made possible because Iran is doing that, but they're only doing that because they're not afraid of Joe Biden. They're not afraid of Kamala Harris. The G7 isn't important. No one's worried about whether or not President Macron is upset about Russia getting more ballistic weapons. Because Macron, France, is too busy trying to cuddle up with China to really make any difference. Germany, because of the Biden-Harris administration, Germany needs their oil and their gas coming from Russia so that they can keep their people alive in the winter and in the summer. They can't really fight and argue about this. The G7 doesn't matter. It's the United States that's important in this. And if we don't have a strong leader, these countries do not stop. And Iran is pissed off at the United States because we just killed a bunch of ISIS members. Well, the terrorists, I should say, not Iran specifically, but terrorists are upset because we just killed a bunch of ISIS leaders. And we are trying to force Hamas to finally do the thing that every country in the world has been begging them to do for 11 months now. Return the hostages, get a ceasefire. That's it. Return the hostages, get a ceasefire. 11 months, everyone in the world has told them that, and the only people telling Iran not to do that, or excuse me, Hamas. The only people telling Hamas not to do that are Iran and progressives over at Harvard and Columbia, Binghamton University, UCLA. The progressive movement in the United States, the Democratic Socialists of America, are the only people who are supporting Hamas along with Iran. Talk about strange bedfellows there. Okay. So we've been on for, wow. I think we covered a lot of ground for an hour and 45 minutes, believe it or not. Felt like time was going by faster. I thought it was like 2.5 hours. No, it's only an hour and 45 minutes. We're actually ahead of time. Fantastic. But again, folks, this is a conversation with you. You tell me. How do you feel about this? Does this make sense to you? Look, I know a lot of people want to continue to look at the news about Trump possibly being shot. I get it. But we already have the story, essentially. The big elements of the story are already known. There's a lot more going on. A lot of it has to do with how the United States is seen. Do we have a strong leader? Will we have a strong leader in 2025? How does the world have to interact with America? They have a different way of interacting when America has a strong leader versus a weak leader. And the news media is more than happy to blur the line between the two so that they can get their political preference. They're more than willing to use all kinds of propaganda tricks to fortify the election for their preferred candidate, which happens to be Kamala Harris. That doesn't mean that's good for anyone in the world. And we're seeing it in all of the evidence out there. We're seeing it with North Korea. We're seeing it with Iran. We're seeing it with the proxies, the terrorist organizations like Hamas, like Hezbollah, like the Houthis, and what they are doing. We're seeing this in what is happening with China. We're seeing this in what is happening in Africa right now. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Oh, could be. All right. So what I'm going to do, we've gone through a lot of the international news that I had hoped to cover. And there's a bunch of domestic news. We're a little bit ahead. It normally takes about 2 hours to get to deal with the international. But even with the breaking news, I think we kind of got that all handled. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a break. We normally take a break about 2 hours in so that I can walk my dog, so I can get a sip of water, get my voice back, and then we continue from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that a little bit early. We're going to take about an hour, which means we'll be back at about 5:15. And then we'll talk about the domestic side of the issues that we are dealing with, some of the domestic solutions we're trying to make, what's going to be happening in the 2020 election. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris and Trump in their debate, about the Kamala Harris ABC News interview, and whether or not that was an infomercial. We're going to talk a little bit about that. In fact, during the break, I'm going to be showing you my review of Kamala Harris's 11-minute interview, as they called it, with ABC News. And you will see why it wasn't. And so that's going to lead us into the domestic issues when we get back. But I'll play that for about an hour, and then we'll be back at 5:15. Okay? I appreciate everybody. I'm looking forward to your comments. You don't have to agree. If you think I'm wrong about something, let me know. If you want to talk about something else you think is important, just like we saw with user has been banned, let me know. We can have that conversation. I'm always open. But until then, let me get this set. And we'll be back at 5:15, folks. 5:15. Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It's September 14th at 11 a.m., and I wanted to take an opportunity to speak with you because Kamala Harris appeared on ABC News yesterday. The real question is, did she appear for an interview or was it a paid infomercial? And this will, of course, have an impact on the 2024 election. It says a lot about the fortification of that election by the mainstream news media. It's very telling, and we wanted to take an opportunity to share our thoughts with you. Now, just before we get started, we want to mention if it's the first time that you're seeing our channel, we welcome you. We thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know that we do long-form political commentary, and every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you to hear what you have to say about the issues that affect us all, because we believe in the First Amendment, free speech. It's not just an American principle, it's for everyone in the world, and we hope you will take advantage of it, even if your government doesn't like it, even if the internet overlords get upset. So we hope to see you then. I should also mention that today, Saturday, the 14th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will be doing part of our Old Man Digital World series, talking about girl bosses, talking about women in sci-fi television movies from the 1970s to 2024, the female lead and how it became the girl boss. So we hope you'll check that out for something non-political that we'll be talking about. That being said, we're talking about Kamala Harris, the current Vice President of the United States, who was anointed by the Democratic Party elites to run for the 2024 election as president when Joe Biden was forced out of that position and kicked out by his party. These are facts. Whether you like them or not is up to you. These are the facts as they exist. And so she, after doing an interview with Tim Walz, her vice presidential pick, jointly with ABC News, she then went to a debate with Donald Trump, and now, still in Pennsylvania, a very critical state that she must win if she expects to win the presidency, she took an interview with Philadelphia ABC News affiliates. Now, before we get to that, I do want to mention that keep an eye out, or keep in mind, that throughout the interview, you will see Kamala Harris looking down and to the right throughout the entire interview. Now, according to body language experts, as far as we can see consistently, they tend to believe that means that an individual has self-doubt and or possibly may be making up portions of what they're speaking about. So that's not a good sign throughout that in terms of the body language. She may be nervous considering she hasn't done a lot of interviews about the presidency or her election. She didn't get into the primaries in 2019. She was not part of the primaries in 2024. So maybe it's nerves. Could be something else. I don't know. But with that said, let's start off with this interview, and do pay attention to the sound quality. It changes at points throughout the interview. Now, ABC News, we are being very critical of them because they have been very propagandist in their approach to Kamala Harris and the 2024 election. We saw that in the debate. So the hopes aren't high about this, but I want you to hear how the audio changes, which would indicate or would presume that that this was taped more than once or taped in segments, and that would account for the differences in the microphones and the microphone levels. But that is a supposition. We cannot say for sure. That being said, let's take a look at the interview. It is an ABC Channel 6 exclusive for Philadelphia, and it starts off, the news anchor for ABC News is a Brian Taff, and we'll start.
All good?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Good. Awesome. Madam Vice President, pleasure to meet you. Thanks for your time today. Our audience appreciates your time as well.
Of course.
As you know, we're sitting here in a state and arguably in front of an audience that 50...
So, before we even get any further, do you notice the very large difference in the lighting with just a camera? Now, this is usually done with two cameras, and normally when you have lighting, you'll light both individuals under the same type of light so that they look even in the camera work when people are viewing it. This is normal. Everyone does that. That's just standard camera work. You light both individuals under the same light so they'll have the same look. And also, did you notice that the audio changed? Now, that could be they have a separate mic for Kamala Harris and him. Maybe, I'm not quite sure. Usually you balance that after the fact, since this was not a live interview. This was a pre-recorded one, so they would normally balance that. But again, I'm letting you know the differences because there is a question about the credibility of ABC News. So let's continue.
54 days from now could decide the outcome of this presidential election. You hear it more than I do. People want to know more about you and about your specific plans. At the debate the other night, you talked about creating an opportunity economy. I wonder if we could drill down on that a little bit. When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Okay, so the question specifically by Brian Taff to Kamala Harris has been, how will you lower costs? That's the first question he is asking. Now, I want you to understand that this first question takes up about 36%. One full third of the entire interview is based on this one question. And he did change the question as he asked it, but essentially it comes down to, how are your plans going to lower costs? Now, that could be energy, that could be food, it could be housing bills. He's not specific. He's leaving this as open-ended as possible so that Kamala Harris can answer this in virtually any way that she wants to, as long as she addresses the question, lowering costs. And this is an important question because even in this very general form, this is one of the top issues that people in America have right now. Inflation and the economy top virtually every single list that has been done, every poll that has been done, asking American citizens what are their issues, their top issues for the 2024 election. So that's the question that we have. We know that. Now we're going to get the answer.
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager.
Does any of this mean anything to anyone? No one cares about her family, how she grew up. That's not important. I understand if you like her, you may want to know about her. That's a feeling you may have, and she is trying to emphasize that emotional feeling. She wants you to relate with her. She wants you to become attached to her. That is an emotional manipulation. Many politicians do that, but she's not answering the question. She's dodging the question. She's also wasting time in this interview to tell you about feelings and not to tell you about the answer. Let's continue.
I grew up in a community of hardworking people. construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn.
She's proud of their lawn. Notice, we've heard about her background, her family. Isn't she a wonderful person? She grew up just like you. People around her were concerned about their lawn. If you happen to live in a major city like LA, New York, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, you don't have lawns, so I don't know why that would be something to connect with, but whatever. She's trying to connect to you. The question is, how is she going to lower the costs that you have to deal with right now? The 20% increase in inflation, the 20 to 40, some people would say 100% increase in their grocery bills and other bills. How is she going to lower that? Do you care about the lawns that her neighbors had when she was a kid? I doubt it, because that's not going to solve your monetary issues. But let's continue to hear what she has to say.
And I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity, and that we as Americans have a beautiful character.
Lawns, dignity, and character do not pay bills. That does not lower the bills. She is dodging the question. She is wasting time in this interview.
We have ambitions and aspirations and dreams, but not everyone necessarily has access to the resources that can help them fuel those dreams and ambitions. So when I talk about building an opportunity economy,
we may actually start to get to the question, how is she going to lower your bills? How is she going to lower the price of goods? We may be just on the road to start that answer.
It is very much with the mind of investing in the ambitions and aspirations and the incredible work ethic of the American people.
Investing in ambition and work ethic. I don't know what that means. I don't think anyone knows what that means. She wants to invest in the ambition and work ethic of America. What does that mean? Nothing. Let's continue.
And creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business. My mother, worked long hours, and our neighbor helped raise us. We used to call her, I still call her, our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small business owners. I learned who they are from my childhood, and she was a community leader. She hired locally. She mentored. Our small businesses are so much a part of.
I do not know what her experience with this person some 40, 50 years ago, being a small business owner, what does that have to do with today? I have no idea. It doesn't have any connection. She's trying to make you feel for her. She's trying to make you have empathy and or sympathy with her, but that has nothing to do with today. She started off with, okay, small business, which means the question is, how does a small business, if Joe down the block opens up a small business, how does that lower your electric bill? How does that reduce your grocery bill? How does that reduce your car insurance? I'm not sure I'm seeing the connection there. I'm not saying there isn't a connection. I'm saying she has failed to make that connection. I do know that her neighbor was someone she liked a lot when she was a child, and she owned a small business. I now know that. I don't care. I know her mother worked hard, which is great, but that doesn't answer how I'm paying bills or how those bills will go down lower. But maybe she'll get it in the next minute and a half.
The fabric of our communities, not to mention, really, I think the backbone of America's economy. So my opportunity economy plan includes giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction to start their small business. It used to be $5,000. Nobody can start a small business.
Okay, so she's going to give small businesses $50,000. 5,000 wasn't enough in her mind. She's going to increase it by 10 times. Fantastic. She's going to help small businesses grow. And that results in lower prices for you and me. Exactly how? How much time has to transpire from her giving this startup small business $50,000 to you having a lower bill? Because she hasn't established that those things are connected yet. I understand where she's thinking of going. Having a better economy helps everyone. That's the idea. She hasn't made that connection. She hasn't even stated that small businesses help the economy. She hasn't made that statement. She wants you to infer many things in what she is saying, but all she has said so far is she's going to give $50,000 to small businesses. By the way, she has not mentioned where does that $50,000 come from. The extra $45,000 per small business that she wants to give away, that's your tax money. That money comes out of your pocket. So either she has to raise new taxes, and even if she doesn't, the government has to print more money. That's inflationary. She's going to drive up inflation, and that means poor people will become more poor. So she hasn't really explained much on how this is helping anyone or what the time frame it is for this help to transpire. Let's go on.
Business with $5,000, but investing in people's innovative ideas and giving them the ability to go for it. Opportunity economy means, look, we don't have...
I want to be very clear. Opportunity economy. She just said that, and she's going to define that for us right now. I'm going to make sure I go back to get it all. What is the opportunity economy? I don't understand what that is or how she's going to help us with it, but we're going to find out right now.
Look, we don't have enough housing in America. We have a housing supply shortage.
A housing supply shortage? I don't understand how these things are connected.
And what that means, in particular for so many younger Americans, the American dream is elusive. It's just actually not attainable. So part of my plan is to work with the private sector and housing developers to give them a tax credit, to be able to partner with us as the government, to build, and my goal is 3 million new homes by the end of my first term.
So, if she gets elected, one of her goals, which is similar to goals that the Biden-Harris administration have already stated and already been working on, is to build 3 million government houses. That's government funding. These are Section 8 houses. The government is going to build houses for 3 million people. Okay. And they're going to pay for this with your taxes to small business owners who own property. Okay. How does that lower your prices? How is that lowering your bills? I don't understand it. She's saying in a year, 3 million, 1%, actually less than 1% of all Americans will have an opportunity, possibly, to go into a government house. We've seen these Section 8 houses all over the place. Many people call them the ghettos these days. You're going to have a bunch of government-built apartment buildings that 3 million people will be able to move into, maybe, depends on where you live in America, and your bills will suddenly be lower. The price of milk will go down. The price of gasoline, the price of electricity, the price of buying blue jeans, the price of bread, these are all going to go down because 3 million people are going to move into government housing, Section 8. I don't see the connection there. And economically, that doesn't make sense. But that's what she's saying is her plan, and somehow that makes sense. She hasn't explained it. Okay, let's go on.
In addition, to help people who just want to get their foot in the door, literally, and so giving first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance.
Okay, so for those who don't want to live in government housing, the projects. You don't want to live in a project, and you have the funds. You're in the middle class. You can afford to buy a home. She's going to give you a $25,000 credit, which will increase the value of your home, so you'll pay more in taxes. So you're really not getting a big benefit. It is an upfront cost she's helping you to cover, even though the price of the homes will increase to adjust for that increase that she's now giving you. And you're going to pay more in taxes because of it. But it is $25,000. So the consequences of it aren't exactly what she's saying right now, but it does sound nice, and it is extra money. And that $25,000 is coming from where? Taxes. Your pocket. You and me will have to pay more in taxes for this. By the way, that's still printing money we don't have, which is inflationary, which means the poor become more poor. That is the direct, absolute consequence of her policy if she were to be elected. That is a fact. It is irrefutable. You cannot avoid that. She's printing more money, therefore that's inflationary. The poor become more poor. That is a fact. She doesn't want to talk about it, but that is the direct and immediate and guaranteed impact of the policy she has mentioned so far, but she has not explained how this lowers food prices, energy prices. She hasn't explained how this lowers costs to the average American. Let's go on.
To be able to just get in the door, and then they will do the work that they need to do to save and to pay that mortgage and to build wealth for themselves and their family. These are some examples of what I mean when I talk about an opportunity economy, and a lot of it has to do.
This is an opportunity economy. There is no opportunity being discussed. Not really. The average American isn't getting savings. She's not helping the general public. But okay, let's go on.
Do with just the community I was raised in and the people that I.
No one cares who the community you were raised with and the people you know. To be fair and to be honest, no one cares about the politicians, any politician. I don't care if they're on the left or the right, whether they're independents, libertarians, conservatives. No one cares. No one cares how you grew up, because we're not your best buddy, and we're not going to be, nor do we want to be. You're an elected official there to pass policies to help our lives. We don't care how you grew up. We don't care who you knew. We don't care what neighborhood it was in. That's not substantive. That's it's fluff. It's meaningless. At the end of the day, it's meaningless. You may know, if you're curious, you got some extra time, you may want to know about it, but that doesn't affect policy. That isn't going to change the world or the life that you're living. It's just fluff. But let's go on.
Admired, who work hard, and deserve to have, their dreams fulfilled because they're prepared to work for it.
So, for the first question, she does not answer how she's going to lower bills. She avoided the answer. She avoided the question completely, and ABC News, Brian Taff, are not going to ask about that. There is no follow-up question. They're just going to move on. She talked about other stuff without much substance or connection, and that's good enough for ABC News. Their credibility is doing fantastic. So, moving from question and answer 1, question 2, which isn't really a very important question for the 2024 election. But let's hear it from Brian himself.
You talked at the debate and at previous appearances about turning the page on the past. And in fact, here today in Johnstown, you're talking about a new way forward. Yeah. I think some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden. And so I wonder if there are one or two spots, policy areas or approaches where you would say, I'm a different person.
Because you couldn't tell that Kamala Harris is a different person than Joe Biden in terms of her age, color of her skin, her gender, her style of speech, her political background. There's nothing. They're exactly the same. They might have been twins. I mean, this is a ridiculous question. It is a non-substantive question. Truly, it's non-substantive. But how will Kamala Harris answer the question, aren't you not Biden?
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
Well, she can answer questions in a complete sentence. So, yes, she's not Joe Biden. She's apparently able to be up later than 4 p.m. every day. She's not Joe Biden. Shocking news there. And I know she wants to laugh, and she knows, her team has taught her that people don't like her cackle when she laughs. So they have worked very hard with her to not let her do that. And she is struggling throughout this interview to not cackle at several points, even though she wants to. But let's go on.
And, you know, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example,
she's not a new generation of leadership. She's well into her 50s. Yes, Joe Biden is almost in his 80s. So in that sense, yes, a different generation. But most of the time when we're talking about new generations, we're talking about 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds compared to those of us who are 50 and above. So not really a new generation in politics. The politics of Joe Biden are the same era of politics of Kamala Harris. But let's go on.
Thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where it's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work, and maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore.
How does taking for granted some unknown thing, what things are we taking for granted today that we didn't take for granted in the past? There could be thousands upon thousands of answers to that, some of them relevant, some of them not, some of them substantive, some of them not. That's a non-answer. There is no substance to that. That doesn't help me understand how you're different from Joe Biden or how your plans and policies will help the American people if you were to be elected. That's non-substantive. It's fluff. She's wasting time. This is word salad. This is a very good word salad compared to what Kamala Harris normally says, but this is nonsensical. It's meaningless.
For example, another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit.
Expanding the child tax credit is not a new idea for Democrats and or for Republicans. This is something that has been discussed many times by Democrats and Republicans. It is not a new idea. It is not new for the Biden-Harris administration. It's not new for the Trump-Vance campaign. This is not a new idea. And in particular, the child tax credit expansion that was suggested by Kamala Harris of $6,000 is a copy and change from the Trump-Vance ticket, who had previous to her said that they wanted to expand the child tax credit to $5,000. She came out immediately after Vance had said that and said she wanted to do $6,000. So copying the exact same idea and increasing it by $1,000. It's very similar to when Donald Trump said he would remove taxes from those who receive tips. Kamala Harris immediately afterwards took on that same idea and said the same thing. So this isn't a new idea, and it's not different than what the Democratic Party or the Republican Party have been thinking of and speaking about for quite some time. So it's not new.
To $6,000 for young families for the first year of their child's life.
Key word here, something that you will not hear her emphasize Again, you will not hear this from ABC News. For the first year. It is an expanded child tax credit for 1 year only for families only. So it's a one-time $6,000 credit. Now, it's something that I think has not been discussed enough, and not many people know that. I think most people, when they hear about this plan, the expanded child tax credit, they're thinking of children for more than just 1 year. It's not like you have a kid, they're born today, and in a year they're 18. That's not how that works. They're not going to be grown adults in a year. That's just the first year. And she will emphasize that the first year of a child's life is very important, without question. No one doubts that. But the extra money isn't for 18 years. It's not even for 5 years. It's for 1 year. That's something she doesn't make very clear in all of her speeches. And even in this discussion, she's going to walk away from that and continue down the road. So anyone who actually looks at the details will hear, oh, she did say it's only for 1 year. So you will, in the future, not be able to say she lied or changed her position. But it's not what most people are hearing. Going on.
Because that is obviously a very critical stage of development of a child. And a lot of young parents need the help to buy a car seat or a crib or clothes for their kids. And so my approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment.
She wants to focus on the current moment. She's a politician. She's supposed to be looking out for the best interest of America. And she's only looking at what's called, in business, this would be called just-in-time logistics. That you only build, when someone orders a book, or they order a crib, or they order a Gundam, whatever it is that you're ordering, they only build it when you make that order. So if you don't order anything, they don't incur any costs. It's a way to reduce cost in your warehouses and with raw materials. You only use what you need to use when you need it. That doesn't give you any future proof. Prices may skyrocket in the future, and you have nothing prepared for that because you're building just in time. You're doing things just as you need. So any future changes in the environment, the economy, you have no protection on. And so you may lose money because of that, because you may not be able to recoup the cost. It is reactionary, and it is not something looking forward to the future. You're always reacting to the current action, and that is bad for politics, which are supposed to protect the future, that are supposed to last for more than just this moment. Laws and policies are supposed to have long-term impact. If you're not planning for the future, then your policies won't work in the future. That's what she just said. That's her policy of she wants to have the politics in the moment. She has no plan for the future. And that's dangerous, potentially.
And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years.
Well, let's go back over that because I want to make sure I get it right. Because you just said...
Directed at the current moment.
Directed her politics, her emphasis is at the current moment. But she wants to look forward 10 to 20 years. How do you do both at the same time? If you're focused on just-in-time politics, how can you be prepared for something that happens 10, 20 years from now, which has nothing to do with what's just happening now? If that's your focus, you can't, it doesn't make sense. She's, again, talking gibberish. It doesn't make sense when you slow down and pay attention to what she is saying. It's gibberish.
And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years. to catch up to the 21st century around, again.
So her focus is on the future so we can catch up with the past? Think this whole thing through. She is focused on what is happening right now so that she can focus on the future so that America can catch up to the past. That's her statement. That is what her statement means. My God, I will play it over just to make sure that I have not missed anything.
Approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years.
The current moment for
to
20 years into the
catch up to
future.
the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
To go back to the past.
Crime and public safety are two.
Okay, that makes no sense whatsoever. That is one of the most nonsensical statements I have heard from anyone. So that was answer 2 to Kamala Harris. Child tax credit, which is Trump Vance's idea, $6,000 for families, which are only for 1 year, and just-in-time politics for the future. Makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, but now we're looking at question 3. Question 3 is a biggie. This is an important one. We are somewhere around 53%. Half of the interview is pretty much over at this moment. Half the interview is already over. And we know nothing. But let's see what happens now.
Safety are two major issues right at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well.
No, the conversation about crime doesn't necessarily lead to gun safety. They are not mutually inclusive because you can be mugged, you can be stabbed, you can have your car or some of your property is stolen. It could be burned down. There's a lot of different things that fall under crime that do not need a gun. So they are not mutually inclusive. Just because you're talking about crime doesn't mean you must talk about gun control. They are not the same thing. But that's what ABC would like you to believe because this will help Kamala Harris. It's fear-mongering, and this is how they fortify the 2024 election. So Brian Taft is manipulating you right now. He is not trying to inform you. He's not trying to ask an actual question that the American people want to ask. So let's start over from the beginning, and I want you to pay attention how he is going to go from crime, which is a major question on many people's mind right now, to the Second Amendment and gun control, which is not the top issues people are asking about in the 2024 election.
Crime and public safety are two major issues right at the forefront of voters' minds. In Philadelphia as well, where crime is a significant issue. When we talk about crime, the conversation turns to gun safety as well. And I think you actually probably caught a lot of people off guard, maybe a bit by surprise in the debate the other night when you mentioned that you are a gun owner. I know you...
Kamala Harris being a gun owner is meaningless. It has nothing to do with anything. Again, this is a question about likability. It has nothing to do with substance. Whether or not Kamala Harris owns a firearm has nothing to do with her stance about the Second Amendment or mass shootings or crime. None of that is connected. This is a question to try and make you feel. This is emotional. This is about fortifying the election. It's not about substance. But let's go on, Brian.
You said it in 2019 as well. I want to talk about your values on this issue. When it comes to gun ownership, where do you draw the line in America on gun ownership and gun use?
So that's the question. According to the world of Kamala Harris, who gets to own a gun and how can you use a gun that you have? How does Kamala Harris and a government, the Harris-Walz administration, how do they get to micromanage your life with your property? That's the question he's asking. He's just made it sound very, very nice. But that is authoritarian. He's suggesting an authoritarian government, and he's doing so with a smile, essentially.
Well, like you said, Brian, I am a gun owner.
Well, again, she wants us to know she is a gun owner. I don't care. Whether or not she's a gun owner is immaterial to anything and everything. No one cares, because that's not important. But what else is she about to say in her answer to the third question?
Owner, and Tim Walz, my running mate, is also a gun owner. We're not taking anybody's guns away.
No one cares. Oh, they're not taking anyone's guns away. I want to stop right here for a second. She's made it very clear, not going to take anyone's guns away. I have to question that because Kamala Harris, on your website, and let me just highlight this for a second, this is the Kamala Harris website, Harris Walls, their official campaign site, which got an upgrade. It only took 47 days and about $500 million, but they gave an upgrade to their website. And on that website, if we go down to making our communities safer from gun violence and crime, notice there are two different subjects. In her website, she recognizes they're two different issues. In ABC News, they're the same thing. I don't know how. But if we look at this, according to Kamala Harris's website itself, she is going to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. That's denying people property and choice, denying them freedom. That is taking a choice away from people. But more directly, the support of red flag laws that keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people. Now, she should have dangerous people in quotes because red flag laws don't define what is a dangerous person, but they do take away someone's gun. If she supports, and she does, red flag laws, she does support the government taking away people's firearms without a law ever being broken. That's the key component of red flag laws. No laws need to be broken for the government to take away your property and your rights, and yes, your children too. So when she says, we're not coming to take your guns, but she also supports red flag laws, she is lying to your face. Because red flag laws take your guns without a crime, without a trial, without you even being notified. No, you have no defense. They take your property, they remove your rights, and they will take your children. That is true in every single state since 1999 that has had a red flag law. So, Kamala Harris, pants on fire, liar, liar. That is not true. You are not telling the truth. You will take people's guns away. Let's go on.
I support the Second Amendment, and I support reasonable gun safety laws.
I don't think so.
Part of my approach to this is I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
No one cares. No one cares about your career. In reference to the Second Amendment, no one cares that you own a gun. No one cares that you are a prosecutor. That isn't addressing the Second Amendment. That isn't addressing the problem with red flag laws, and it has nothing to do with anything. No one cares about, but she's trying to use her authority. She was a prosecutor. She was the attorney general. She is the vice president. She's using her titles and the authority that those positions command to silence anyone who would question her. But the thing is, her title has nothing to do with the policy and its consequences. So she should be questioned. That's the purpose of the First Amendment. That is the purpose of the press, is to ask a question when politicians use their titles to try to silence people. So again, No one cares that you're a prosecutor in your past life. That isn't applicable or important today.
I have personally prosecuted homicide cases. I have personally looked at autopsies. I have personally seen what assault weapons do to the human body.
Okay, she's seen assault weapons. That would be a machine gun. There are 745,000 machine guns in America at this moment. There are well over 20,000 machine guns in California right this second. There are well over 15,000 machine guns in New York State, 30,000 machine guns in New Jersey at this moment. Almost every single state in America has at least 5,000 machine guns that are owned legally owned at this moment. None of them are being used for a crime. There have been 4 times in American history where, since 1932, where a machine gun has been used to commit a crime. None of them were prosecuted by Kamala Harris. She has not seen an assault weapon used to commit a homicide unless she has decided to go to another country and that is currently engaged in a war. But she definitely didn't see it in California. She is lying. She is confusing the term assault weapon, which would mean a machine gun, and a rifle. They are not the same thing. A rifle is not a machine gun. They never have been, they never will be, and even though she wants people to think of Rambo the movie, that's not the reality. We don't live in Hollywood, even though she may have been in Hollywood because she was in California. That's not the reality. It's not the world. That's not the truth. So she's lying to people. Let's go on. We don't.
And so I feel very strongly that it is consistent with the Second Amendment and your right to own a gun to also say we need an assault weapons ban.
No, that is not consistent with the Second Amendment. That isn't consistent with my right to own a firearm if I choose. Shall not be infringed does not equal gun ban. You cannot have a ban and tell me that my rights have not been infringed. She is factually lying to your face. She is factually reinterpreting, reimagining in real time the Second Amendment to match her political preference, and that has nothing to do with your rights. She is lying to people's faces on ABC News, and ABC News will not question this. They will just allow it, even though it is factually absolutely incorrect.
They're literally tools of war. They were literally designed to kill a lot.
Knives were designed to kill. Machetes were designed to kill. There is virtually no tool that exists in mankind today that was not originally a weapon. Most of the utensils that we use today were originally designed as weapons. There's almost nothing outside of humans' hands and feet. Everything else created has been used at some time as a weapon, many of them as weapons of war. That makes no sense, what she is saying. She's trying to use emotion to override logic, because if you think about what she's talking about, it doesn't make sense. It's not substantive. But let's go on.
A lot of human beings quickly. I say we need universal background checks. The majority of NRA members support that.
Stopping again. ABC does not fact check her on this. No, the NRA does not support. The NRA does not support universal background checks. The NRA does support background checks. They have supported that. Universal background checks are, and I quote from the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action, deceptively marketed to the public as a way to keep guns from dangerous people. Quote, universal background check legislation is instead a broadside against lawful firearm ownership in America, setting cruel traps for common and innocent firearm-related conduct and banning an entire class of law-abiding adults from certain purchases. That is not the support of the NRA, and Kamala Harris knows it. She is conflating information, assuming that you aren't going to check, and knowing ABC News is not going to ask her a single follow-up question. They're going to assume everything she says as at face value and is absolute fact, even when it is not, to try and fortify the 2024 election, to give the illusion to low information voters that Kamala Harris is brilliant and has this all down, even when she is lying to your face. That's just very upsetting. Very upsetting. But let's go on.
Why? Because it's just reasonable. You just might want to know before someone can buy a lethal weapon if they've been found by a court to be a danger to themselves or others.
If they've been found by a court, not a trial, but a court, a judge, that they are a danger to themselves or others. That is the exact wording of a red flag law, which is not bound by crimes, does not have a jury of peers, does not require evidence and proof. It just needs a judge to say, okay, I think that's true. That's it. You just have to tell a judge, I think Joe down the block, well, they're dangerous. Oh, do you? Yes. And they own a gun. Oh, well, we should take that from them. That's the red flag law process. That's what she's saying right now. Well, they might have a red flag action against them, so they're just bad people. They didn't commit a crime. See, this is how they word this to manipulate you, and they're twisting all of the things. She's twisting all of her answers here. It doesn't make sense, and she's contradicting herself as she goes.
You just might want to know.
Too funny.
Okay, next question. We're almost done. By the way, 75% of this interview is now over. 75% of the interview is now over, and we're only up to question 4. There's only 5 questions in the entire interview. It's almost over. It's only 11 minutes. So, next question.
Final questions, if I might.
Sure.
On the appeal of the man you were running against, as you drove here today, you likely saw a lot of Trump signs. Mm-hmm. He has an historic appeal in this country. And as you are someone running against him and trying to understand that, I wonder how you distill it. What do you understand his appeal to be? And how do you speak to his voters, or maybe people who just share his values but are open to something else?
So the question by ABC News to a candidate is, Orange Man bad? Orange Man, Donald Trump, is popular. And they don't know why he's popular. But Orange Man bad, Donald Trump is popular. Kamala Harris, why is Orange Man bad popular? And can you talk to the MAGA people and convince them that you're better than Orange Man bad? That's the conversation that we just observed from ABC News, taking it out of the newspeak that he's using and just putting it in common terms. That's exactly what he said. And that is insulting and should be insulting to all Americans because it is not substantive. Whether or not half of America, 80 million people or more, like Donald Trump or not, has nothing to do with the policies suggested by the Harris-Walz administration if they were to win. It has nothing to do with the ability of those policies to have a positive outcome. It is meaningless. It has nothing to do with American politics in the domestic or the international. Whether someone likes Donald Trump or not, if they believe in America first policies or making America great, has nothing to do with Kamala Harris. They're not connected. Your feeling has nothing to do with Kamala Harris or the election. But they're trying to make you feel like it does. Okay, let's see, how will Kamala Harris answer this question?
Based on
Why do 70% of critical thinkers ditch Disney Plus? Because they found something better. In today's economy, every dollar counts. So what's worth subscribing to? Let's compare Disney Plus and no Soundbites Allowed. With Disney Plus, you're shelling out $140 a year. Why do 70% of critical thinkers ditch Disney Plus? Because they found something better. In today's economy, every dollar counts. So what's worth subscribing to? Let's compare Disney Plus and no Soundbites Allowed. With Disney Plus, you're shelling out $140 a year for virtue signaling shows targeting mythical modern audiences. Plus, a theater visit could cost you $40 or more. Ouch. Now imagine a platform where fresh perspectives, insightful interviews, and engaging discussions are at your fingertips. That's no Soundbites Allowed. And the best part? It's free with an option to support only if you choose. While Disney Plus ticks off virtue signal checkboxes, no Soundbites Allowed offers real talk and sharp analysis. Perfect for those who crave depth and clarity. Why break the bank for entertainment? Subscribe to No Soundbites Allowed and enjoy meaningful content without the hefty price tag.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us back here at No Soundbites Allowed. This is September 15th. It is currently 5:16 in the evening. There has been a lot of breaking news that has been happening, and we have been following up on some of that news. We also put out a poll on the news. The breaking news being that there was a second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. There is more news about that. We're going to cover that. We were covering it earlier today and was, as suggested, I want to clarify a couple of points. Darth Hideous in the chat had mentioned that, hey, there seems to be a second shooting that's being talked about against Donald Trump, that there was a second assassination attempt. That is the same news as the initial news brought to us by user has been banned at about 3 in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, about a half hour after we had started the program. Now, at that time, what we had seen in the news, and let me bring this up for you properly, bear with me, folks. So, at the time, we had gone back and we had gone to the international news first, going to The Guardian. And their news story at the time was talking about shots in the vicinity of the golf course and that Donald Trump was safe and that there had been shots fired and Trump was golfing at the time. That was the initial news story as it came from international news sources. We also checked out what was being said by the far left news media to show the rest of, to show the public why did we go international in covering the news first before we decided to do anything else. And we were able to show you. Now, since that time, since 3 o'clock this afternoon, we now see that the Daily Beast has completely changed their story. They removed the initial story that you can go back on the live stream and you'll be able to see this. You'll see that they had an entirely different news story talking about the potential of shots, that it was near Trump, and they were relying on news they were getting from Politico and from the New York Post. They hadn't done any reporting of their own. Fair enough. Sometimes that happens. But in that, they initially stated, and we have highlighted that, I believe. I had it highlighted. Where did they change it again? Oh, here it is. No, they changed it. They had a link. Wow, they are actively changing this story a couple of times, because I just had it highlighted that they had been relying on the New York Post, and they had initially said that there was 2 individuals that were involved in a shooting near the golf course near Donald Trump, and that he had been evacuated by the police. So they're continuing to update this story. They keep changing it as we go. So they removed that completely. The initial story from the New York Post is that Trump was rushed to safety. Again, a lot of the news agencies are changing the information that they are providing, because initially it was thought that there was a shooting near the golf course. That's what was initially reported. And then it has come out, and we can see that the initial reports, as stated by the New York Post, that 2 people were firing at each other. But now we know that it was the Secret Service shooting against a potential assassin who was in the woods, who would be later caught on I-95 after this incident, after Donald Trump had been evacuated. The Secret Service were on the golf course, away from Donald Trump, in front of Donald Trump, and they were able to isolate and identify this attempted assassin. They engaged that assassin with gunshots, with gunfire being exchanged between the 2. That individual then left. It appears that individual had a rifle, a semi-automatic rifle, which is not an assault weapon. They did not have a machine gun. They had a rifle, and that person disengaged to later be caught on I-95. That's where we get from the reporting according to the New York Post. The thing that I think is very important about this is that NBC has not changed their coverage. NBC said initially they suggested that this was a hoax. Again, you can go back into our coverage, our live stream at 3 o'clock, about a half hour into the live stream when we first started covering this, and they had an entirely different headline. They were suggesting in the byline that this was not real, that the shots were unconfirmed, that it was unconfirmed if this was real or if it was a hoax. They have since changed that, as all news media have learned more about the incident, have confirmed that it was a second assassination attempt, that there was a shooter with a rifle, and that the Secret Service did engage with them. They changed the title, but they didn't change the article. And you can see here the article, which says, the Trump campaign said former Donald Trump is safe Sunday after possible gunshots. We know that there were gunshots. That is a fact. Rang out in the vicinity of his golf course in West Palm Beach. It is still, according to NBC, it is still unconfirmed if the shots were in fact real. The only people who are doubting the reality of this is NBC. Kamala Harris, both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have condemned the assassination attempt against Donald Trump. This is from today, September 15th. This isn't the original attempt. This is the current attempt, the breaking news right now. She said that on September 15th at 3:42 p.m. This is after NBC News came out and said it was a hoax. That NBC News alleged that this may not be real, and that they have not changed that information from NBC News. that even though they updated the headline, they did not update the story itself, and still are insisting to the audience of NBC, who are Democrats, that this is a hoax, that this is not real. We again will say to you that this is propaganda by NBC News. That NBC News, in their delay, in their effort to allow there to be any illusion of a hoax, any illusion of lack of confirmation, any illusion that this did not happen, is an attempt to fortify the 2024 election. This is meant to bolster Democrats' disbelief in Republicans and in Donald Trump, and to believe that this was completely made up so that they can help gain votes for Kamala Harris. That is my belief. That is what I gather from looking at the evidence as I am showing it to you on the screen right now. This is currently 5:25 p.m. and I am showing you the live information. In fact, I went a little bit further than that because I went on to X, and you can go there now. I also posted in the chat a poll asking you, do you believe that NBC was credible, or were they propagandist as they suggested what we now know was an assassination attempt, that it was a hoax, that they suggested it was not real? Now, I'll update this because I haven't had a chance to update it yet. We haven't had a lot of people take it so far. 3 votes. 2 people believed that it was propagandist. 1 believed it was credible, that it was credible for NBC, the only news agency, to say. The Daily Beast, even they did not doubt that there was an attempt on Donald Trump's life. Even the Daily Beast, a super far left propagandist, progressive news organization, even they accepted that there was gunshots, that they were near, if not on the golf course, they were near the golf course, that it may have involved Donald Trump. Even they did not doubt this and did not assume that it could be a hoax. Only NBC, they were the only major mainstream news media source that we could find internationally that doubted the validity of this incident, which tells me and should tell you that your trust in NBC News is misplaced, that they are more than happy to provide misinformation and disinformation to their viewers to gain a political advantage. That's it. And that is what I define as propagandist. That is my opinion. That is based on the evidence that remains available to the public. And you can see the original articles that I am referencing at the roughly the 30-minute mark in this live stream, and you can see the current one. And I will have the links for the current versions that I have still saved that after the end of the show, so you can look back on it. But it is our belief that NBC is playing political games with breaking news about the President of the United States so that they can alter the 2024 election. There was a second attempt on Donald Trump's life. That is a fact. This comes out of statements from the left demonizing Donald Trump, saying that he will end democracy, that he will take away people's rights, that he will dissolve the Constitution, that he is somehow going to, either through Project 2025 or some other means, turn America into a dictatorship. That is not accurate. That is categorically incorrect. They have misattributed to him many things, like when in the debate between Donald Trump, and we were talking about this Wednesday, during the Wednesday live stream at 7 p.m. with the Liberty First Foundation. We initially were talking about 9/11 and talking about the Americans who died in 9/11, talking about the Americans that were abandoned and remain abandoned in Afghanistan, 5,000 Americans. We were talking about the 13 service members that died because Joe Biden wanted to run away from Afghanistan because he thought it would be a political gain for him, which created the dominoes that have led to the destabilization of the world today and has resulted in 35 Americans being killed by Hamas and 19 Americans held hostage by Hamas. Likely, most of them are already dead. So that was very important. We were talking about that then, and it was part of, I did do a live, oh, no, this is the wrong one. Is that it? I did cover the entire, I don't have it up here at the moment, but I did cover, and I do suggest you can go into either YouTube or Rumble, look back on September 11th, and we did live stream the entire debate. Kamala Harris speaking, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at the ABC News debate, which was incredibly biased. It was incredibly propagandist. It was meant to steer people towards Kamala Harris. It was an attack on Donald Trump. Many people have compared it to 3-on-1, and it was. Kamala Harris was not fact-checked even once, even as she lied about things that are so popular and widely known. Every left-leaning news media source have admitted Donald Trump was not trying to prop up or to support the KKK or white nationalism in Charlottesville, that is a lie perpetuated by the left-leaning news media, by the Democratic Party to gain votes, to try and be able to call Donald Trump a racist. It's not true. It has never been true. And Kamala Harris said that lie that had been debunked by ABC News, said it during the debate, and the moderators let it go and did not say anything about it. Kamala Harris lied about the economy and the status and how well or badly Donald Trump did in 2020, assuming or trying to assume that that was exactly how Donald Trump did in his entire presidency, which is not true. She misattributed or ignored the fact that there was a global lockdown. She ignored the responsibility of Democrats in terms of dealing with the pandemic. She ignored the economic realities at this moment and completely ignored the open border policies that she and Joe Biden have instituted that have led to 8 million illegal aliens in America, some of whom have done things like killing American citizens, or in Colorado, going in and taking over apartment complexes, and many other issues. The news media has instead decided to focus on cats and whether or not some immigrants in Ohio are eating cats. The answer is yes. Some illegal aliens who do not have adequate housing, who for various reasons, whether it be voodoo or just starvation, may eat animals. That happens. There are homeless people in America who are Native Americans, or rather I should say Americans by birth, that have been here always in their life. They're homeless and they may be eating animals, pets or otherwise, as well. When people are in the wild, when they are starving, they will eat what they eat. The question isn't so much, is there a mass outbreak of illegal aliens that are eating pets? The fact is, the question is, are there illegal aliens who have so overwhelmed our systems that our cities are breaking down, that the infrastructure has failed? That's the question. And the answer to that is yes. The Biden-Harris administration have failed. Kamala Harris, as border czar, failed so extremely that infrastructure is breaking down and people are not able to adequately get food, both illegal aliens and American citizens. But this may be why many people think that Donald Trump, well, we know that some people think Donald Trump didn't win the debate. I know one of my friends, Larry Sharp, who I'm going to be speaking with next week on Saturday. Matter of fact, next week, Saturday at 3 p.m. On a much lighter note, Larry and I will be debating about the best sci-fi villain. This will be on TV and movies. But we'll be debating that next Saturday at 3 p.m. That's fine. But the real big question that I think is that people had, and Larry said, Donald Trump lost. I don't think that's correct. Maybe in chat, you guys can tell me what you think. I don't think that Donald Trump lost. I think Donald Trump didn't match the expectations most people had. Most people were expecting fire and brimstone. They were expecting the Donald Trump of 2016, or maybe the Donald Trump of 2020. But that's not the Donald Trump of 2024. We have seen both in his debate with Joe Biden and in this debate with Kamala Harris that he is much more subdued, much more reserved. Instead of, we've seen that in both of these these debates in 2024, Donald Trump isn't trying to speak over his opponents. He's not interrupting that much. That he is generally more subdued. While he's making some personal attacks, he's not making that many. That his demeanor, his voice, his actions were much more subdued than what we have seen in 2020, what we have seen in 2016. There could be a lot of reasons for that. Not least of which is Donald Trump is, of course, older. And perhaps he's more tired. These are realities that could be a factor. Although he has his mental faculties intact. And he is capable of having the conversations and having a debate, even if it is not as animated as we have seen in the past. But I think the expectations for Donald Trump were extremely high, and the expectations for Kamala Harris were underwater. All Kamala Harris had to do is very much like what she did in the first sentence of the first question asked to her by ABC News. And that is, are you Joe Biden? And the answer is no. And that's it. Just by merely showing up at night and knowing where she was and being able to complete a sentence, no matter what that sentence may contain, means that Kamala Harris is not Joe Biden, and she has beaten the hurdle of expectations in the debate. Because the debate was, she's mindless. If she isn't as mindless as Joe Biden, she has succeeded. The Democrats have a better candidate than what they had before. Their chances are better of winning than they were before. Hope has returned to the Democrats. That's the hurdle she had to achieve, which is why I think, as to be expected, NBC News, ABC News, the mainstream news media, which is 80% left-leaning, instantly came out and said, well, Kamala Harris won. Of course they did. They always were. There was never a doubt that they were going to say that Kamala Harris won. They have always said that. They said that beforehand. They said that with Joe Biden. They don't care who the candidate is. As long as they're a Democrat, they win. And you can say a similar thing to an extent about the right, except you really can't. Because when you look at the various right-leaning pundits, you will hear people who say, I think Donald Trump lost. Frank Luntz, who is on the right, said Donald Trump lost the debate. You've heard from many, and I'm not talking about establishment like Dick Cheney or Liz Cheney or the Bushes, the establishment class of the Republican Party. Not counting the rhinos. I'm talking about rank and file individuals and pundits and commentators who are not aligned with the establishment politics. They too, many of them have said Donald Trump lost. I believe they are incorrect, because I believe in almost every case that I have heard, including when my friend Larry Sharp has talked about it, and he is a libertarian, so he's looking at it from a view of third parties for the most part, almost everyone is looking for Donald Trump in comparison to 2016 and 2020. Not what we have seen in 2024, which is not the same style. It is not the same nature. It is not the same thing. There's a different criteria to judge it by. And so I think that had a lot to do with whether or not Donald Trump, whether you perceive Donald Trump as winning the debate or not. Kamala Harris, no one was judging her based on, did she lie? Yes, she did. Did she lie a lot? Yes, she did. Was that allowed by the moderators? Absolutely. Even when Donald Trump was correct in some of the things he was stating that the moderators didn't like, they challenged Donald Trump. They never once challenged Kamala Harris because they support Kamala Harris. They want her to win. So they made the illusion of her looking good. And they compounded that. And while I said that on Tuesday night and on Wednesday with the, and I said that again on Wednesday during the live stream with the Liberty First Foundation, and I believe that wholeheartedly, I believe that what we saw on Friday, which was Kamala Harris being interviewed by ABC in what essentially amounted to a infomercial, as I have said consistently. It was an infomercial. It wasn't actual reporting. It wasn't an interview with candidates. I have done dozens upon dozens of interviews with candidates at every level of government. I have interviewed candidates for city council, for legislature, the state legislature, for Congress, vice presidential candidates for the United States government. I have basically candidates for every office you can think of, and I've interviewed many elected officials, whether they be county executives, state assembly members, state senators, members of Congress. I've interviewed many elected officials, and I can tell you, none of those interviews were 11 minutes long. Even when they were short, even when I was doing a remote interview with someone who was traveling on the road, I've never had an 11-minute interview with an elected official or a candidate. It just never happens. Just from the mere fact that their answers, if they're answering a question, actually will take you over 11 minutes if you've asked more than 2 questions. That's just a fact. But somehow ABC was able to engineer it so that they were able to ask 5 questions, essentially, in 11 minutes. Part of that was they didn't ask any real questions. They really weren't asking. They were asking Kamala Harris to quote her website and what was posted on that website. 2 of the 5 questions were, Kamala Harris, you're really great. Can you tell me how great you are? This is like someone watching Ray Palpatine talk about Star Wars. And they'll just tell you how great Ray Palpatine is, that she's the bestest ever at everything she has ever done. But you have no content. There is nothing there. As an example, and for those who are watching the break, when we were gone for the break, I was playing this, and the very first thing you see, her answer to the very first question. And her answer, matter of fact, let me make sure I got it right. I want you to see this. The question, specifically, how will you lower the cost of the economy? How will Kamala Harris, if she were to be elected, how would she lower the cost of the economy? And her answers are, she talks about her lawn when she was a child, dignity in the community that she had and in her family, and the character of individuals around her. How does that lower the cost of anything anywhere in America or anywhere in the world? It doesn't. She wastes about half the time, the first 2 minutes of her answer are wasted on talking about lawns and dignity and character that no one cares about, that has nothing to do with the 2024 election or her policies in 2025. She is only trying to make sure that you feel like she's a nice person. And that was ultimately the goal. That's why it was an infomercial. They were trying to sell you on the feeling of Kamala Harris, that she's a nice person, which no one agrees on. No one believes that. Not even Democrats believe that. But they're trying to sell that to the American people so you'll vote for her, not because anything she has to say actually makes sense. And again, if you watch the break on the live stream, or if you go and you look at the interview, you'll see my further comments about her suggestion of $50,000 for small businesses, about creating government housing, about her answer on $25,000 for first-time home buyer credit, which do not resolve the question, how do you lower prices? None of this lowers prices. None of this has any impact that's positive on the economy. It is purely inflationary. It makes things worse in every single one of those answers. But that's what ABC suggested, and they never followed up. That being said, what was the net result? What has been the net result of watching NBC lie to the American people, to misinform, to actively suggest that actual facts are hoaxes, to lie to the American people, to manipulate them, and to also see ABC do exactly the same thing, to manipulate the public, to try and engineer and fortify the 2024 election for Democrats. Well, the net result has been nothing. That's the thing. And that again goes to why I think Donald Trump won. Kamala Harris received nothing. There is no real benefit. She had no bump. And I know any individual, any one poll might suggest that she gained or lost. Same thing with Donald Trump. Any one individual poll may suggest that he either gained or he lost. But when we're looking at the aggregate, and the way that I look at polling is this not even to look at the aggregate of the total of the polls, which would say that Kamala Harris is up about 2 points. That's not even important. It's the trend. What is important is the overall trend of what we are seeing about the polls. That tells us where the truth of the polling is. And what we see consistently, we have shown you this over the last 45, 50 days. We've been going over this over the entire summer and beyond, that we can show you. Kamala Harris has been at about 46 to 47% consistently, almost immediately. The moment she was named as the successor to Joe Biden, at the moment she was installed by the Democratic elites without a single vote, without the voice of any Democrats, rank and file Democrats across the nation, without ever having, she has never been in a presidential primary, and she was anointed as the successor and now the front runner for the Democratic Party in the 2024 election. And her poll has not changed. It's gone up about half a point. It has gone down about half a point. There is no change. She is flatlined. All the positive news, all the positive press, rewriting her history, rewriting her past actions, redefining her culturally from being East Indian to being black African American. Everything has resulted in a flat line. And now, even after the debate, even after we have seen her ABC News interview, seeing the interview with Tim Walz and Kamala Harris with CNN, all the data shows us is a flat line. She hasn't gained in interest. She hasn't so much lost interest, but they can't push her higher. You cannot artificially make more people interested in Kamala Harris because there's nothing to be interested in. And this is part of the reason why she has failed internationally. Now, I have to be clear. She did spend, thank God, because of the donations for 47 days in a row, she begged Democrats to give her money because Orange Man bad. That was the only answer. Orange Man bad, give her and Tim Walz money. That was the only thing she said. That's the only thing she cared about. She eventually did add in a bio for her and a bio for Tim Walz. Mind you, the bio for Tim Walz did not include the fact that he lied about his military history, his stolen valor, that he gave himself a promotion that he did not earn, to suggest that he retired at a rank he did not have, to suggest that he was a combat veteran, and he is not. So he lied to the American people. That wasn't in the bio that Kamala Harris decided to put up because they edited it. They did an edit and took it out. But they finally, on day 51, or rather with 51 days left to go into the election, having raised over $500 million, they finally did an upgrade to their website. Finally. It only took 60 days, and they made a better website. But when we go into the website itself, we finally get the issues, which only showed up the day before the debate with Donald Trump, which we have shown you guys previously. And you can see that her answers are exactly the same. And her actual answers, there's nothing. President Harris and Walz believe that working families deserve a break. That doesn't answer the question, cutting taxes for the middle-class families. Who cares? That's why under their plan, over 100 million working and middle-class Americans will get a tax cut. That's not telling me anything. That's not telling me what that tax cut does. How is that paid for? Her answer is the child tax credit provides $6,000 to families with newborn children. She left out for 1 year. Yes, there is a child tax credit for 1 year. She said that in the debate. She doesn't say that on her website. So voters are very likely, if they're just reading her website on her policies, would be led to believe that they can get a child tax credit for their 5-year-old kid, for their 12-year-old child, for their 2-year-old child. Some new parents who have just given birth to a child will think that after the first year, when their child turns age 2, that they will be, or his first birthday, his or her first birthday, their first year, you would think that you will continue to get that tax cut. You won't. That's not going to be there for you. So we don't know how she's going to pay for this, and she's editing and isolating who gets told the truth about her policies because it's not on her website. Perhaps the only thing that has been positive coming out of the debate, out of the interviews with CNN and ABC, the infomercials that she has done, perhaps the only thing that has been beneficial from the lack of access to Kamala Harris to answer actual questions, to actually back up what she has said on memorizing a website and actually getting into the details. The only positive that we can really see is, and we have to admit, her disapproval rating, which has been hovering at about 50% for most of her time in office, has recently dipped down to 47.6%. That has been a big achievement. It is probably the best it's been, Well, essentially, it's the best it's been since October of 2021, shortly after we abandoned 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan. It's the best she's ever had, essentially. But when I say not everyone agrees, we do know, as reported by Reuters, there are polls that are showing that 56% of voters agree with the policy positions of Donald Trump. 56%, according to Reuters, 56% of voters agree with Trump's tariff proposal. Now, polling may show that Harris is leading, depending on which poll you're looking at, but people are agreeing with Trump. Trump is better on the economy, and that Trump will be more beneficial to the average citizen than Kamala Harris. And we can see people have said, and this is from the New York Times, where one of the individuals that they have asked about what their feeling was about the Trump-Harris debate by ABC News was that even though she wanted to like Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is a supposed black woman, she wanted to be compelled by that enough to vote for her, and instead she's going to vote for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is better. And Donald Trump has a history, and the record of Donald Trump is better than the record and the history of Kamala Harris. That is a victory. And I think that's what most people are thinking of. They may, in any given moment, have an emotion where they connect with the idea of Kamala Harris, of a woman and a woman of color. They may like the idea of that being the next president, but when it comes to the details, the reality, the track record, the history, what do they trust? They go to Donald Trump. Again, people may disagree with me. You can always call in to the program 929-715-8569, and you can say, Mike, but I disagree. I'm happy to hear your voice. I know I've argued with Larry Sharp about this. I've argued with a couple of people about this. I'm absolutely happy to hear your voice to tell me why you may think I am incorrect. Or you can leave a super chat, or you can just chat. I'll be happy to do that. But I think when we are looking at the data, that again, according to Reuters on September 13th, 1 in 4 black men under 50 support Donald Trump, not Kamala Harris. This is coming from the NAACP. This isn't right-leaning. This isn't propaganda. This is from the left itself. This is from the NAACP. Black men who are most likely to vote aren't voting for Kamala Harris. Black men who have been watching Democrats make promise after promise and take advantage and consider black people just to be a given to be voting for them, they're not doing it. Kamala Harris is the straw that's breaking their back. It's just not worth it. And I think we are starting to see that consistently. Now, and we have seen, according to Newsweek, that Kamala Harris is also in trouble in Michigan. She's losing Michigan. Why? Because of her statements about Israel. Because she is not supporting Hamas. Because if she supports Hamas, she is going to lose. Especially as long as Hamas continues to hold at least some of the American hostages that are alive. We don't know. The only hostages we've gotten back were Joe Biden bought 3 of them in November of 2023, and Hamas killed one of them 2 weeks ago, shot him dead rather than allow that American to be sent home to his family. Rather than allow him to be rescued, they shot him in the head, and they have threatened to shoot every remaining living hostage, shoot them dead rather than let them be rescued in an attempt to cow Israel into not trying to save these people, to save the political posturing of Hamas, which I think is kind of evil. But we can see that 800 voters, a sample, showed that there is a slight, in Michigan, there is a slight preference towards Trump. And it is absolutely necessary for Kamala Harris, if she wants to win, she needs Michigan. She has to take Michigan. She has to take Pennsylvania. Otherwise, she will lose. And she knows it. Thus, ABC News Philadelphia did the puff piece infomercial, as I showed you earlier, that says nothing and is just meant to sway emotions, and why we are seeing Kamala Harris is trying her very best to demonize Donald Trump, which has resulted in a second assassination attempt. Now, what is this? But we know that the more people learn about Kamala Harris, the less they like her. This is one of the reasons why Kamala Harris has promised that she will bring back the Disinformation Governance Board, that she will increase the amount of censorship from the United States government over the internet and over free speech. But that isn't the only thing that she's going to be doing, because there's also CNN. They just can't keep lying. There's no way around it. There is a record for Kamala Harris, and that record is one of flip-flops and unpopular policies that only the far left could love.
Has uncovered, meantime, a 2019 questionnaire. And in this questionnaire, Harris laid out some much more liberal stances, among them on immigration. So in 2019, in what K-File found, she said she would cut funding to ICE, writing, quote, "Our immigrant detention system is out of control, and I believe we must end the unfair incarceration of thousands of individuals, families, and children. I was one of the first senators after President Trump was elected to advocate for a decrease in funding to ICE."
So, this is why in 2019, no one supported her, including other Democrats, because she wanted to defund ICE. In fact, increasing the number of illegal aliens that enter into the United States and who are bogging down our infrastructure, which would destroy even more cities, that would endanger even more Americans. This is counterproductive, and she knows it. And that's her history. This is who she is. This is how she got elected as AG in California. This is how she became a senator for California. And now here she is getting another promotion because of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we look at who she was, who she is, it's unappealing.
Well, now, of course, she's touting the Biden administration's executive order to crack down on the border.
Doesn't end there. CNN also uncovered Harris providing gender transition surgery to detain migrants.
Can you imagine that? Kamala Harris, she hasn't been asked about this directly. Does she still want to does she still want you, the American people, to fund gender transition surgery, affirmation surgery for illegal aliens? Illegal aliens need, when they say, "Oh, I want to be another gender," they're going to take money from your pocket, you, the American people, so that that illegal alien can change their sex before they get deported. Does that make any sense? How is that supposed to improve the price of bread? How is that supposed to lower the price of eggs? How is that supposed to give the growing number of unemployed Americans a job? It doesn't. It just makes poor people more poor. And we see that consistently. It's very upsetting to me. It really, really is. And all of this has come together to show us that the Biden-Harris administration is insanely weak. And it is so weak that we are now seeing that Russia and China are working together in the Pacific, not just to threaten Japan, not just to threaten Taiwan, not just to threaten the Philippines, all of these nations that the United States has a treaty and an obligation to protect, but also the United States itself. And so, to respond to the 90,000, let me say that again, 90,000 Chinese and Russian troops on planes and on ships and actual soldiers themselves that are mobilizing in the Southeast Asia region, the Biden-Harris administration put forth 130 Americans. Let me be very clear about that. They put forth 130 American, the United States Army members to countervent and to counteract 90,000 Russian and Chinese forces. I can see how China and Russia are quaking in their boots. 90,000 versus 130. And this is to prove that the U.S. Army can be everywhere and anywhere at any time with force, as long as it's only 130 members. Are you kidding me? But this is what we get from the Biden-Harris administration. This is what the Biden-Harris administration thinks is a show of force. They are coming through with the absolute minimum effort, the minimum requirement to be able to qualify as a president, as an administration, as saying that they have a policy. This is the bare minimum of effort and understanding and impact. Again, you guys may think I am wrong, and I'm perfectly happy to hear that. If there are those who are on the left who say, Mike, no, you just don't understand, I'm happy to hear that. But I'm showing you the evidence, again, from around the world. And none of it, this is why there have been 2 different attempts on Donald Trump's life. That's why there was a second attempt against Donald Trump's life, because the left are seeing that Donald Trump is most likely going to win, that he has been maintaining, if not gaining, ground. And the more that people find out about who Kamala Harris is, the less they like about it. The more that people look at the Biden-Harris policies, the less people like that. And the more likely they are to vote for Donald Trump. And therefore, Donald Trump is probably going to win. I think Donald Trump is going to win. And the left, when faced with abject failure, when faced with a loss, when they don't get what they demand, they always resort to violence. Every time. Antifa, the autonomous zones in 2020, the violence, the burning down of cities by Antifa and BLM. We have seen them do this in protests for the pro-Hamas protests across this nation, the DNC convention, even at the convention in Philadelphia for the debate, we saw the left in every single case commits acts of violence, destruction of property, vandalism, threats of people's lives, and of course, attempts to assassinate Donald Trump. This is what the left does. Every time. Every single time. And it's documented. And we are documenting it. Thus, we continue to say, we are going to see Donald Trump win. Because as people evaluate, they want Donald Trump to win. The only people I think voting for Kamala Harris are those who are voting based on check boxes, off of characteristics. The people who are voting because she's black, which isn't a reason. Those who are voting because she's a woman, That's not a reason. It's not justification. The people who are voting for her because they're afraid of the left rioting when Donald Trump wins. That's not a reason. That's fear. That's fear mongering. No. She's going to lose. We also get to find out some other things. Remember when Joe Biden in 2022, it was December 2022, and he stood in front of the White House. He was talking to the American people, and he said he was tired of all those Americans who didn't get the jab because the jab was perfectly safe. There were no side effects. The jab was perfection. It would stop you from getting the pandemic. It would stop you from spreading the pandemic. That's what Joe Biden said in December of 2022. I want to remind you of that because it is that same mindset of mandates, of compelling obedience that comes up when we realize that Florida is discouraging the use of mRNA jabs in older adults because it is not the best thing for you, because there are side effects that may occur, because it does not prevent you from getting the pandemic. It does not prevent you from spreading the pandemic. There is very little benefit, in fact, at all to you as an individual. And for most people, it is unnecessary. So that's one of the reasons why we keep seeing these things. Let me check back in. I want to double check. Come on, once my computer catches up with me. My computer's freezing. There we go. Ooh. There we go. Come on. My computer is freezing up. It's a little bit humid today. Where was I at? So I'm trying to check on the news about Donald Trump. Has there been any further update? And bear with me as I'm checking the news here. By the way, folks, feel free to go into Twitter to go and vote on my poll, or to, in the chat, to actually take the poll and to vote about what you think about NBC. Are they credible? Are they propagandists? It's up to you. But let's see. Let me show you that. Just typing in assassination, we see that this is the second assassination attempt against Donald Trump. As of 27 minutes ago, the FBI are investigating. Guy aimed outside of the, just outside of the gate of the golf course. Trump is safe. Nothing new. Well, let's see. The Guardian is saying, do we know who, according to The Guardian, again going to international news outside of the United States, do we know anything about that individual? No. Trump put out an email that he's safe. Potentially, the individual had a AK-47 rifle, which is a semi-automatic rifle. It is not an assault weapon. It was a serious incident. The guy was caught at Interstate 95, I-95. It has been called an attempted assassination. The guy had a scope on his rifle, a GoPro camera. He was intending to live stream this event. He wanted to make a statement. Again, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris said that they are relieved that Donald Trump is safe for the moment. Remember, they also said this after the first attempt on Donald Trump's life. They said that, the rhetoric needs to change. We have to calm the rhetoric down. And then they proceeded to raise the rhetoric right back up to where it was. They ignored their own words. They went back to demonizing Donald Trump and making America great again. So this is useless to hear them say, oh, I'm so happy that Donald Trump is safe. No, you're not. So we don't know who this individual is yet. Okay. All right, so I don't know. It's been quite the day. How about this, folks? Oh, there's my puppy. My puppy's a little active now. What? Stop. What I will do is we've talked about a lot of these issues today. We've covered a lot of ground. I want to continue to look about the assassination. I do suggest people look back at what was going on 30 minutes into this program, into this live stream, when we were covering NBC News and their lie, their suggestion that this was all a hoax. And then I want you to see what the news is saying right now. I want you to understand that there is a game being played against you, and we can do something about it. And we can hold these mainstream companies that are trying to push propaganda against, we can do something against them. And we don't need a disinformation governance board. We don't need government guidance or a government institution of corruption to be able to decide, well, today you've been a good boy, your stories are all true. I don't like your politics and all your stories are false, when that's not what the facts actually say. I want you to look back on that, and you take the poll. You tell me what you think. I'm telling you, we caught them. We caught NBC News. I published it. Now it's up to you, folks. Like, share, subscribe. That's what I ask of you. Like, share, subscribe, in defiance of the lies that we have seen from CNN, MSNBC, ABC News, when they are trying to pass off bad goods to us, whether that be Kamala Harris or reporting on news events that can shape the world. With that said, folks, I'm gonna let you go. We're only early by about half an hour, but I'm gonna let you go. I look forward to seeing all of your comments after the show. I will have the links up in about an hour, and we will, of course, have more coverage throughout the day, the week, going forward. Okay? I'll talk to you again soon. Oh, wait a minute. Jan says, not sure if you responded on this Oregon admitting. Yes, I did. I covered that earlier in the show as well, Jan. I did, so do check that out. Thank you.